hear you. All right. Good evening, community members, um, board members, staff. Welcome to our meeting. This is a special board meeting and it is virtual. We, I would like you to welcome to the Milpitas Unified School District Board of Education. And we're going down to the agenda. First, I would like to address the Board of the Education on, if you would like to address the Board of Education on any item not on tonight's agenda, or one that appears on tonight's agenda, please complete the green speaker card located, no, this time you have to go on musd.org and fill out the request. On the card, please list your agenda item that you would like to speak to. If it is not on the agenda, please write public comment. When your name is called, um, you can ask the question, or if you sent it in online, the communication specialist, which is Scott Forstner, will read your question out loud. At this time, I would like to take roll call. I'd like to have call this meeting to order first, and now roll call. Huang Lin, I'm here. Chris Howard,
Here.
Kelly Yipchuan,
Here.
Michael Sai,
Here.
Min Ngo.
Here.
Good. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Michael, for logging on and being here with us virtually. Do I have a motion to review and approve the open session agenda?
Motion to review and approve the open session agenda.
It's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Flag salute. Vice President Norwood, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice President Norwood.
You're welcome.
Okay, comments from the public. Members of the public may address the board on any subject not on tonight's agenda. However, provisions of the Brown Act, Government Code 54954.2A and point 3 preclude any action. As an unagendized item, no response is required from the board or district staff, and no action can be taken. However, the board may instruct the superintendent to agendize the item for a future meeting. So okay. If you would like to address the board on any item on the agenda or one that does not appear on the agenda, please go to www.musd.org. Complete the public comments contact form and click submit. The item for items not on the agenda, your comments will be read into the record under the comments of the public portion on the agenda. For items on the agenda, your comments will be read at the time of that item. The district asks for contact information from all those wishing to speak so staff can follow up on issues brought to our attention. Thank you for your participation in the civic engagement. Board group agreements. Min, would you help me, please?
Yes, absolutely. So the board group agreements are provided for the board's ready reference as a reminder of our conduct as elected officials. Per board bylaw 9001 amended on November 26, 2019, board members and the superintendent agreed to: one, keep learning and achievement for all students as the primary focus. 2, ask questions for our own understanding. 3, be open and honest with each other. 4, no surprises includes unapproved communications with law enforcement, news media, regional elected officials on behalf of the district and or board. 5, be aware that our behavior in the community reflects us on us as a team. 6, communicate proactively with each other about topics, questions, and challenges in open session and in advance of public board meetings in compliance with the Brown Act. 7, participate in professional development and commit time and energy necessary to be an informed and effective leader. 8, actively support the culture of we in action, deed, and opportunity to serve the students and parents of the Milpitas Unified School District.
Thank you, Min. All right, moving on to reports. We have one MUSD COVID task force. This is Dr. Superintendent Jordan.
Thank you, President Leanne.
Is the audio okay?
Join audio? No. Okay. We're good. All right. I'm going to start off by talking about, just to give background and also experience of what we're involved in right now with COVID-19. It's been a tremendous struggle for all of us and could easily have deterred us from carrying out our mission, which is to provide opportunities and pathways for success in environments where all of our learners are inspired and empowered. However, we are MUSD, and we're known for creativity, innovation, and trailblazing. 143 days ago, we started a new way of life and a new way of being with each other. We've learned that we need to be with each other virtually or 6 feet apart or further with masks on. Our lives have changed. The way that we educate has changed. And we remember spring 2020 with COVID as an example of how a committed group of people can make a difference. And we did that. We engaged almost every single learner every day, with an average of about 277 who were unengaged each week. And we listened, we surveyed, and we discussed, and we iterated on how we can make things better for all of us who are teaching, learning, and working from a distance. In May, we initiated our COVID-19 Advisory Task Force, which determined that we needed to have 14 subcommittees in order to support us as we worked from May to now in planning out all aspects of literally redesigning education in MUSD in a way that involves distance learning. There are over 260 people involved in the planning. What you see on the screen ahead of you are the values which we shared back in May. The values that we all keep in our hearts and in our minds as we go through planning for the best learning possible in this situation. Each moment, each hour, every day, every week, we get new information, and it causes us to pause and to pivot. So the information that we shared, the direction we were going in June, is different today. On the screen, you have the timeline that shares what we've done thus far, that shares the different subcommittee work, and provides the dates for what we expected to do in July and August, and that is what we did do. We learned that there is actually more than one phase of going in from distance learning to what we were calling hybrid, that we actually need to create 3 phases. And so tonight you're going to hear from those 260 people the preparation that they've invested in creating MUSD Educate Everywhere version 2.0. And August 13th, which President Lien has shared in all of our parent Q&As that we've had throughout July, and which is the date that has been on our calendar, will be the first day of school. And that is the day that we launch phase 1, where everybody will be in 100% distance learning. We will continue our parent communication and support and continue professional development for our team. And in addition, we will be submitting a waiver to the Public Health Department, requesting permission to provide in-person support when conditions are safe for our elementary students. In August and going forward, we will prepare for phase 2, which again is when conditions are safe and we can provide supports for small groups of students who are struggling, who are vulnerable groups, or who are in groups with challenges such as special education and English learners. By September 30th, we will submit our learning continuity and attendance plan. And our advisory task force will give an update to the board later in October or late September. And we will continue to plan for phase 3, which will be the hybrid we talked about earlier in June. However, phase 3 most likely won't occur until conditions are safe enough, meaning that we've been off of the county watch list, the state watch list, for more than 14 days, and in conjunction with our associations and our board and our parents. As I recall, I believe it was around 2004 or 5, we talked about the possibility of a pandemic. And at that time, we did not have technology. Had we had a pandemic, I'm not sure that we would have done as well as we did. To recap, on March 16th, we literally dove into distance learning without much knowledge or skills other than our backpacks. And through the spring, we began to look at what it was that we would need to build our airplane, to build a jet. And now we are about ready to launch a jet. Granted, it's not a luxury liner yet, nor is it a super jet. But that is what we strive for, and that is what we will achieve with continued distance learning and professional development and how to do that. And it's going to take many more hours that our staff is dedicating to learning how to be the best they can in this new reality. Numbers are always a way of showing people impact. Numbers speak to people in many different ways. And so this is why I want to share with you the numbers. From the midpoint of March through the midpoint of July, we sent out many different surveys to teachers, students, team members, and parents, with over 6,000 responses. Those various surveys ask questions such as what's working, what's difficult, what's a challenge, do you have Wi-Fi, do you have a digital device? Would you be wanting to put your child in 100% distance learning for the year? Would you need to teach in 100% distance learning because you have a vulnerability or because you have a person at home who is vulnerable to the illness. We conducted 62 meetings just with parents and community from April all the way to last Friday. We have 14 subcommittees, as I mentioned before, and 260 members of our COVID task force. Those members are consist of students, teachers, team members, classified team members, and community members. I talk with my colleagues throughout Santa Clara County, and they are all doing the best that they can as well with what they have. But I can tell you something unique to Milpitas Unified, and it goes right along with our culture of we, is that we have 260 people involved in planning all aspects of redesigning the ship. In July, we held 11 Q&A meetings for parents and community, and so far 4 for our team members, with almost 2,500 participants. Those 260 people on the 14 subcommittees since the middle of June have logged in 11,050 hours of their own time because they're committed and without any sort of compensation other than the gratitude that they are contributing to something immense, something exceptional, and something to be proud of. And now I would like to introduce to you the first of the 14 subcommittees. We will hear from all 14 subcommittees. And so I would like to ask the board to hold your questions until we get to the midway point, at which time we will pause. So I'd like to first introduce our systems subcommittee with Edgar, Abner, and Brian.
Hello, hello, I'm Abner. We also have a parent in our subcommittee this evening, and she's going to speak first on this particular slide.
Excellent.
Thank you, Abner. Hi, my name is Elaine Silvera, and I am a parent at Spangler Elementary and also a volunteer. Our subcommittee was focused on safety and health. We worked to evaluate and design various protocols to optimize campus safety as it applies to the pandemic. To that end, we looked at signage to include directional markers, distancing rules, and overall health instruction, which has been sent to the schools this week. The first phase primarily focused on signage for the office and high use areas. The second phase will be sent out this week and include detailed instructions for all highly used areas. MOT will be available for assistance as necessary and requested. Our online application is being reviewed and pending approval, and this will be used as a daily tool to assess your basic wellness and, of course, to go to school. The signage includes all the directional markers, distancing rules, and overall health instruction. With that, I'll turn it over to Abner. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. As Elaine mentioned, the first package has been sent. Instructions were sent via email. But just to make sure that everybody gets the instructions, we are going to send with the second package set of instructions printed, and that way everybody can have it on their hands. We have all the available tools that are required. We have hand sanitizers, we have the washing stations, which are reserved for us, which will be brought in as we're facing into with the small groups of students as necessary. It's worth noting that the sanitizer we are using, Terminator, doesn't have to be scrubbed, doesn't have to be touch. It just, you spray it where the students have had contact with the surfaces and you let it air dry. It doesn't need to be disturbed or anything. That's the directions for manufacture. All the necessary personal safety equipment has been shipped. And as Elaine mentioned, the second shipment will take place between Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. And all of the sites are more than welcome to call MOT if they need direction. We are willing to help. And Brian has extended his invitation so that we all can help each other and make this a successful comeback new year for the school year.
Next, I would like to introduce our site and district offices ensuring safe return for all. And we are led by Sally Miner.
Thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I'm Sally Miner, Principal Secretary at Zanker Elementary. Our committee had employee representation from elementary, middle, high school, and the district office sites. On this first slide, you see the types of PPE have already been delivered to our sites, as Abner said, and as he also said, if necessary, work orders will be placed with MOT for installation prior to office staff returning to work. The need and details for no contact thermometers are currently still being worked out by admin. Ready for the next slide. To be prepared to serve our families and our population, we put together some bullet items here. Of course, not all of our offices are built alike. However, we did try to take that into consideration. So offices will designate entrance exit sites, one person at a time, one visitor at a time, appointments when available, when possible. The markings are outside. We were provided spray paint. And so we've got 6-foot markers outside our offices. Temperature checks for visitors that would be coming on site for more than a short transaction. We would be continuing business online as much as possible. We do have the mounted hand sanitizer, touchless hand sanitizers ready to go to have by our entry doors. Office personnel will remain 6 feet apart. There are some offices that are a little smaller than others. And so when 6-foot positioning is not possible, we'll try to use wall dividers, sneeze guards, always possible too, to stagger the shifts in the office if you have a really tight space. The health clerk offices with social distancing, given the size of the health clerk offices, space to socially distance 6 students is going to be difficult. At the high school, for example, Principal Rojas will be setting up an area in the library for the health clerk. So this will be something that will have to be determined by site leads, just based on pure space, as well as probably site decisions to decide where quarantine areas could be if needed. We'd have to change some policies as far as parents dropping off things throughout the day, lunches, homework, jackets. It would be too hard to contain the possible exposures. So we'd have to cancel that. And then the final thing would be that this committee is recommending that deliveries would be diverted back to the warehouse instead of to the offices, since sites do not have separate areas or doors for deliveries. We would have to process deliveries just like we would visitors. So we are recommending that it goes back to the warehouse. And our final slide would be how we would continue to serve our community, standard procedures that all offices are going to try to adhere to. Initial contact should be made for new families, should be made through a site secretary email. We'll have to list these on the home websites, the district website, and all office doors. We completely understand that there's nothing more frustrating to our families than not being able to get a hold of someone. So that information will be readily available to the public. We will need to limit visitors to one family member, with the exception of possibly translators, or if someone is in need of physical assistance. Sites will have to determine how they'll handle walk-ins. For example, I opened my office for limited hours today, and we just simply are receiving people at the door with a table blocking it. So I'm still able to help them. Secretaries will set appointments as often as possible, and we will continue to manage our existing families through email, Parent Square, telephone, or by setting up appointments if they need to come in to discuss something. And obviously, any office staff working from home can use email, Parent Square, and GoToConnect for their telephone use. So we can do it. That's it for us.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you to all the subcommittee members. Next, we have Sandy Nguyen and her team with student nutrition.
For student meal service, our subcommittee was formed by many classified staff from different departments, many of whom are also parents in the district. So we focus our planning around 4 main areas. One, and first and foremost, keeping everyone safe, which means minimizing the exposure for our staff and families. 2, making sure all students have access to food. 3, maximizing the use of CDE flexibilities this year. And 4, creating a clear and consistent schedule to avoid confusion with how and when families can pick up meals throughout the year. So since March 16th, our dining staff have followed safety guidelines to keep each other safe. We are going to continue to enforce these guidelines as we start the new school year. So this includes wearing face masks, keeping 6 feet apart from colleagues and families, and frequent hand washing with sanitizer available. We also have face shields for our employee for additional protection. And lastly, our service will be set up outside of the cafeteria to keep the service outdoor as much as possible. Next slide, please. So starting the first day of school, August 13th, we plan to open all 14 cafeterias for easy access for our MUSD enrolled students. Parents and students can pick up meals at any one location, and it doesn't necessarily have to be their home schools. Parents will be allowed to continue to pick up the take-home meal for their children. So the students do not have to be present, and there will be no dining on site. So the meal pickups are scheduled twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays for a 4-hour window from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Tuesday will provide 2 days worth of meal, and Thursday will provide 3 days. One of the requirement, which would be a change for the family since March 16th, is that parents and the students will have to present their student IDs at the time of meal pickup, because we will have to ring up the meals according to their account. If they do not have an MUSD student account from prior years, they can request a meal card from SNS office. It can scan the same way. We are encouraging all of the families to preload their student meal account because no money exchange will happen during the meal pickup. And lastly, one of our main focus right now is to collect and process meal applications as quickly as possible. With many families who may be affected by this pandemic, many families who normally don't qualify may qualify. So we really want the families to maximize this meal benefits and have their meal applications all ready to go before the first day of school. So they can apply online at myschoolapps.musc.org, or there are also paper applications available online and as well as at the school offices. We do see an increase in submitted meal applications this time compared to last year. So we are just seeing more applications coming in this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent,
Yes.
before we go on, there's 2 public comments. Can we go over that first?
Are they related to this agenda item?
We can wait, Scott. Do you want to read those? Okay. Are they on the agenda, Scott?
Let's wait till after the presentation and then
Okay.
we can, yeah.
All right. Okay, Superintendent.
Okay, I would like to now invite our health, extracurriculars, music, athletics team, and they were led by Joanna Butcher, Luis Lopez, and John Ag.
Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me well. So our committee was comprised by about 6 members, and we have 3 slides to present. Some of the information that I'm about to go over will touch upon the health, and in particular the health office, clerk office. I believe Ms. Elaine alluded to some of the information that I will be speaking about. So in regards to health and the health clerk's office, there are a few things that we're going to have to really consider, and I have to mention that it's strictly a site-based situation because every site's health clerk's office is a little bit bigger or smaller, or is configured in a way that it's going to have to go through some modifications. So for example, one of the things that at Spangler that we need to definitely look into is possibly rearranging some of the furniture to instill the safety precautions, such as the 6 feet distance amongst the students or those that may be in there. As you see from the slide, our health clerk will also have to have that protective plexiglass to make sure that, that, again, those safety measures are instilled. One thing that we did come up with in our committee was the possibility of retraining our staff and students in terms of entering and leaving the office. One thing that we were considering is having a sign-in sheet just to kind of monitor who is entering that space and who is leaving that space. For example, if our secretaries have to go in there to collect the CUME folder, we will be requiring them to sign in and out just to really keep track of who is entering. The other thing that we're going to look into is really the bathroom usage, that being allowed for only students and no one else. Sometimes it's very convenient to use the restroom there. So those are just some of the protocols that we're thinking about in the health clerk's office. And lastly, really having a space that if we had to quarantine, having a space on the campus that we can ensure that that person is just there until next steps. With that said, I'd like to pass it over to my co-facilitator, Joanna Butcher.
Hi there. So in covering athletics and music, one of the things, the middle school is still a great unknown in regards to what will happen or if middle school athletics will happen. The high school also taking quite a bit of flexibility on this one. We are currently in summer workouts until December 12th. That is working on the summer pods. We have quite an extensive list, which you can refer to the milpitasathletics.com website. We are hoping for potential contests come January 1 for season 1. The CIF has put us into 2 seasons, a season 1, season 2. That means we will have 15 sports slotted for season 2. So we do have plenty of concerns about facility space, time and days of practice and contests, multi-sport athletics, locker room use, spectators. Are we gonna have buses, parents drive for transportation for contests? And so there's quite a bit that we're going to be working through. We understand that we're going to have to be flexible and adaptable in regards to this year. Music and theater are going to be looking at in 2 different realms because they are curricular and they're also extracurricular. And so, yes, we are going to have music, and yes, we want theater because those are so valuable to our programs. And so it's just a matter of how they're going to be able to do it. Music has talked about that they're going to focus on theory and history while performing the virtual instruction as they go through this year. They're doing quite a bit of work in regards to looking at the recommendations. So the American Choral Directors Association, we've got the County Public Health Conditions and Guidelines, and we've got the National Federation of High School Music Education and for Athletics that we're using for this. Next slide, please. And then just in general, when we look at extracurriculars and clubs,
Ms. Butcher?
Yes. Oh, over. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
No, we just couldn't hear you.
Oh, you couldn't hear anything?
No, we could hear you. You're just distant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's better.
Do I need to repeat anything?
No, we're now on the extracurricular activities, events, clubs, student government.
Okay, just the basics on the extracurriculars is that we are going to be virtual. And so we're going to have to be very flexible and adaptable in regards to how we're going to do it. We know that it's going to look different. We know that it is vital for our student community at all levels. And we just need to be really open to new ideas and ways of doing things, and are going to be very open to suggestions and feedback how we are going to be working virtually in order to have all of our extracurriculars to keep our programs strong at all our schools in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next group is our student supports group and social emotional learning, and we have Ms. Sandra Quintana with parents and her co-facilitator.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Quintana, Program Manager of Mental Health, and I have as a co-presenter with me tonight, Missy Santos, one of our parents in the community. Our subcommittee had a composition of parents, district staff, teachers, and we had one high school student. So our proposition or our proposal this year is that we all need to understand, embody, and prioritize social emotional learning, which is focusing on a student's learning needs beyond academics and in these 5 particular areas of social emotional learning: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. We are proposing that this is the main way for us to strengthen relationships, which is the #1 protective factor for our students when coming back to school. It must be primary even before rigor for academics, so we build that foundation for them to feel safe to learn. We also feel that this should be built upon year after each year, and that it's a universal support that can be delivered to all of our students. To do this, we have proposed small steps across family, student, and parent groups, as well as staff. And in the next slide, I will have Missy lead us off with what our parent supports will look like.
Hi, everyone. My name is Missy Santos, and I'm a parent of 2 children at Kerner Elementary. To help support our parents, we focused on the following items. The first one are parent social circles. The second one are facilitated conversations with parents and teachers. The third one is the use of room parents to help connect our teachers with our parents. The fourth one is parent toolbox for references and resources. And the fifth and final one is trainings for parents on social emotional learning. Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you, Missy. And so each of these other areas we have here are ones we have recommendations under. And so including clear, consistent, and ongoing communication among all of our supports and departments within the district and with our community. We want to embed social emotional learning into district and school culture. We want to support our teachers because social emotional learning starts with the adults. We have to know how to model it. We have to know how to embody it ourselves before we can transfer that to knowledge from our students. And there's many virtual supports for this on our website and at Educate Everywhere. We also are proposing data collection, not necessarily formal standardized tasks, but more informal check-ins, exit tickets, things of that like. And we have resources for our staff and support teams to be able to utilize. So also highly encourage going over that resource and that link at the bottom for Educate Everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. And that link can be found on our website.
Yes.
Our next group is our parent support and Educate Everywhere. And we have 2 co-facilitators leading that group, Krista Davis and Beth Cohn.
Hi. So our committee was made up of about 20 staff and parents. And after meeting several times, we really decided that one of the main things that needs to happen is the building of relationships. So our hope is that in the first few weeks that that's hit really hard, teacher and staff to student relationships, teacher staff to parents, student to student, and parent to parent. A lot of our parents just really want to know who their kids' teachers are, where to find the assignments, and how to get help if they really need it. So we tried to focus on 3 areas, which is supporting parents with communication, supporting them with technology, and supporting them with the workload at home, since we'll be doing digital learning. You go ahead and next slide. Thank you. So for communication, we wanted it to be early, consistent, and accessible. So we're hoping that teachers can find a way to introduce themselves prior to school starting, whether that's just like a grade level introducing themselves or something that the parents can start getting a feel of who their kids are going to be with this year. We'd like to move back to school night up from the end of August to the beginning, or not the end of August, but the like 3 weeks into like the first week of school. And we're hoping that communication could be consistent and regular, that the parents always know to look on Monday for a newsletter or every morning for a newsletter, and that we use hopefully a school-wide platform like Google Classroom and Parent Square, so the parents can kind of do it similar for all their children within the same school or even across several schools, that they know where to look for the information. And then also for communications, making sure it's accessible to all parents. And that means that everything needs to be translated, whether it's a Google form or a survey or a newsletter. And also we kind of came with the idea of creating a parent group that has multiple language spoken, and those parents would volunteer to be interpreters or translators for us throughout the year so that a parent can call on help if they need it from another parent. For technology, just lots of training, whether it's from the teacher or from the school side, but training on all the programs such as Parent Square, Google Classroom, or any of the other programs that we'll be using this year. Finding out early what the students need, if they need a Chromebook or another Chromebook, or even better Wi-Fi, how we can go about helping them support multiple devices in the same household. And then there was an idea of creating a parent-run tech team where parents can send in help tickets similar to what the staff does now, but it would go to a field of parents and maybe in high schooler students who could field the technology questions for the teachers instead, because a lot of times I didn't even know how to help the parent. But if someone who is technologically savvy, sorry, very good at technology could run the help the parents. And finally, with the workload, we know a lot of parents have to go back to work, and so we talk a lot about having flexible time for assignments to do, so that parents can help when they're at home. Having teachers record the lessons so that the teachers record the lessons so parents can access them later and understand what the teachers were teaching. Having Google Meets through either the teacher, grade level teams, or even the school, providing meetings where the parents can come together and just ask questions and get support on what they need to do. And also we thought of having the PTA provide parent town halls so that the parents could go to other parents and ask questions, and then the PTA could give the information back to principals and staff. And that's it.
Thank you, Krista. Our next group is Team Support and Educate Everywhere. And I'd like to introduce our co-facilitator, Una Caterin.
Thank you. It takes a village, and we are definitely part of that village. So there were 4 of us on this committee from elementary, middle, and high school. And we just sort of want to say, if we're making a plane fly, what do we need? We need to really value our team members. Just as teachers and staff will take care of our students and families, we respectfully request that all the team members in our district take the time to communicate clearly and directly, that they hold realistic expectations, and they do frequent check-ins and recognize the emotional toll of this work. We really want to sustain this profession. We do not want to burn out. Next slide, please.
So when you think about how things are going to work, the school staff is the party that's most responsible for keeping families and students feeling both supported in their learning and their social emotional needs. And that means that we need to consider how we can support our staff so that they can then support our families and our students. When we dove right into distance learning, it had a really negative impact on our staff, unfortunately. We know it was a pandemic, we know it was a crisis, and so there was only so much we could do. But we actually went ahead and sent out a survey asking staff to respond, describing the words that best, or using the words, that best described their experiences during distance learning with the rollout, with how they were feeling about work and how they were feeling overall. And you can see the responses somewhat represented here in these word clouds. So basically the words that are the biggest are the ones that we got again and again and again. So if you flip through the next few slides, you're going to see that those words are overwhelmingly in spaces of need, of feeling overwhelmed and stressed out and anxious and burned out. And so we have to make sure moving forward that we protect our team members enough that they can then go on and do that same thing for our kids and for our community. So we really want to make sure that we put them as a priority going into this next year. Distance learning will not be sustainable if we do not provide that support for our staff.
And thank you. That was Brenna Demas. We need to go back to the other slide. Well, it's okay. You can leave it there. In order to stay healthy, all team members need support. And this support will in turn benefit all of our students and our families, which is the very community that we serve. So we spent most of our time together coming up with sort of activities, ideas, recommendations for different ways to feel so that our team members feel valued, heard, and cared for. And this is about all of our team members. This goes from our bus drivers and our custodians, our health clerks and our secretaries, to our paraprofessionals, to our teachers. It goes through to our principals, our APs, and all the way up through the district office to our superintendent. So every single department has been thought about and included. So we hope that you will take the time to look at these different suggestions that we've made so that we can fully support one another. Together we can, and together we will.
Thank you. Our next group is professional development, and that group was led by 3 co-facilitators, Michelle Kessinger, Ava Magena, and Catherine Hutchison.
Hello, everyone. We are the professional development subcommittee. Our objective was to advocate for a plan of professional development to provide responsive support, resources, and training to our Milpitas staff. And we began our work by considering what is the most urgent, relevant, and what would have the most impact in order to inform our planning for professional development. We've found a lot of inspiration in an article that we've linked here on this slide about planning for better professional development in an uncertain future, found through Edutopia. So I highly recommend that you look at that article. It helped us inform us and guide us in the direction that we are going to be recommending for our focus areas. And along with that, we also wanted to make sure that we gave lots of voice and choice in being responsive to all staff members. So we did seek out quite a bit of input from members in our community, and through the use of surveys that Cheryl mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation. We used a lot of that to gather data about what we need. Next slide, please. And we are going to be advocating for some focus areas that we believe the district should invest in to have a really robust professional development for this year and ongoing into the future. So one of the big focus areas that we're really hoping to center ourselves around is trauma-informed instruction. And along with that, social emotional learning and social emotional academic development. As the committee before us mentioned, social emotional learning is really crucial, and we want to make sure that we're providing that for the kids and students as well as for our staff. Along with that, we would also like to focus on making sure that we have professional development around dynamic hybrid and distance learning instruction, especially because we are looking at continued time with distance learning. We are hoping to have a lot of support around making sure that we are providing the best for students in a circumstance that is not ideal, being in distance learning, but making sure that we are doing our very best in forming and creating distance learning opportunities. We also want to take the work that we have done as a district. In January, we began focusing on what we've called cultural sustainability, and we would like to start referring to that as one of our other focus areas as anti-bias and anti-racist instruction, making sure that we're educating teachers and staff in how to have discussions with students and lead classrooms in a school district in a way that is anti-bias and anti-racist. And then we also would like to focus on team building and collaboration, supporting staff and communicating with families, connecting, and then also focusing on family engagement. So it seems like a lot, but many of these items have been discussed through many subcommittees before. We feel that they're very crucial and will provide us with a lot of support for staff. And I'm going to transition over to Avon now, who will be talking about the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Catherine. Will you mind go ahead and click on the proposed schedule, if you don't mind? So how will we be able to accomplish giving professional development in our focus areas? We have a recommended schedule that we put together so that we could meet the most urgent need at the beginning or prior to school beginning. And so we broken it into 3 different areas. The back to school week, where we can provide that immediate training needed to get school started. And then we have a monthly thematic PD that we wanted to do once a month on Wednesdays. And if a staff member could not attend that PD, we definitely want to have them recorded and then house them on our CTC website. So that way our staff could, as they have a chance, be able to have voice and choice in what they're choosing for professional development in the time that they have allotted. This also would help teacher burnout if they have the ability to be able to choose the professional development that they need at that moment. And then we also have our specialized professional development days, which we will survey staff and be able to flesh out additional needs from there and then meet that need. If we could also then click on the 3 sites of support. Thank you. In addition to that, we have discovered that there are 3 sites of support that our thought partners pointed out could use a quick reference tool. And so we're recommending that we create a quick reference tool to be able to quickly look and see, oh, I need math support. Where can I find that? That way parents, staff, and teachers all are able to find things very quickly to meet their needs. So these are our recommendations. They're in 4 areas: to provide targeted professional development during the first week to meet the urgency, to create monthly schedule that has a thematic recorded professional development that teachers would be able to access, formulate specialized PD days with additional survey information to flesh out ongoing needs and address them, and fine tune the 3 sites of support tool to be able to disseminate that to all so people would have quick access. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's time to pause and take questions and answers. All right.
Thank you, all the subcommittees, for your presentation here. My first question is in regards to the Sports and Health and Safety Committee. In regards to the extracurricular clubs, I know that we're talking about engagement that will have to change as far as virtually. Are the advisors going to be facilitating the virtual meetings, or we're having the students facilitate the virtual meetings?
If one of our go ahead.
Sorry. So for following the California Associated, the CASBO guidelines, they're allowed virtual meetings. The advisor needs to be present. They can do one of 2 things. They can either record the calls with everybody's permission for the Zoom call or the Google Meet, and that will serve as sufficient minutes, or they can type them up and use a virtual call so they can have a scribe at that point in time to take care of things. In regards to doing the service, it's a matter of what are some things that they might be able to do in regards to kits, what are safe and sanitary places that they can put some things together. They want to hand things out to people. There are some community outreach programs, like they're still doing coastal cleanups and things like that have their own safety protocols that would not necessarily be sponsored by the school, but there are various posts that our community service director is making students aware of as she is being made aware of what's available out there.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone who's presented up to this point. I heard a couple of things that I'd like to clarify for myself. Who will be responsible, or how will school websites be used as multilingual tools to support families?
So are you asking who will be responsible for making sure that at the site level, anything they put up on the website is translated for multilingual?
One of the comments that I heard earlier was about the need, the request for multilingual support of our families and constant communication. And one of the things that I did not hear is I didn't hear about the tools, and in particular, how could the websites be used as multilingual tools as a part of the way that we have to go forward in education.
Aside from translating what we have on there, there is also a tool that will translate automatically for people in different languages, and that's one of the Google Tech tools that is available to parents. And when we get to that tech subcommittee, I'll ask them to explain how that works more.
Thank you. And one other question early on to the first group. When will teachers, I heard in the conversation that there was some description about when kids are going to be on campus, and we know that we don't see when that's actually going to happen. So I appreciate how far in advance we're preparing for that day, knowing that it's not going to be anytime in the near future. So thank you for leading the conversation about what we're planning for in the future when that day comes. I do want to know, when will teachers be able to go back into their classrooms or utilize their classrooms in any capacity without students in it?
Teachers can use their classrooms as learning studios as of August 13th, and some teachers are already preparing their classrooms to use them that way.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question for the student support group. In regards to how the support will be delivered, is that going to be self-sourced or self-identified by the student, or is there going to be some sort of intervention and identification to supply those resources?
All of the above, and I'll ask Sandra to elaborate.
Sure, thank you. Yes, so when we're talking about student supports, we're talking about it at this point being a tier 1 universal support, which means it's delivered through the classroom to each and every student. So that would be actually focusing on the adults who would be utilizing it in the classroom with the students to work on those 5 competency areas I mentioned in social emotional learning. And then beyond that tier 1 support, we will continue to have counseling supports and tier 3 one-on-one, more intensive supports with individual counseling. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that provides a little bit more in-depth clarity to that, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
And in addition to that, Assistant Soup Jonathan Brunson has secured Care Solace to support not just team members, but also students and families.
Yes, am I on?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we did secure that, and it's a wonderful service. We have it posted on our staff website for human resources, but also resources for the ability to our families to look at too. And then we have staff that were just trained today with the warm handoff, that if any of our children or family needs support, we can do that as well. And it's effective immediately. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question for Sandy in student nutrition. How many meals have we served thus far?
Since March 16th, we served over 440,000 free breakfast and lunch.
Could you say that again?
Over 440,000 breakfast and lunch served to the any youth under the age of 18 in the community.
That's amazing.
Will we continue, besides, I know that we're starting school again, but will we continue to provide some sort of meal service to community as well outside of our students?
For starting the new school year, CDE will only allow us to serve students enrolled in the district. So it will no longer be free for everyone and to all of the community.
Thank you.
And CDE stands for California Department of Education.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Let's get another subcommittee up.
Okay.
Oh, we can take the 2 public comments at this time, Scott.
And we're up to 4 public comments right
All
now.
right. We'll take them.
Hold on one sec. All right. The first comment is from Raina Shah of Carson Way. And she states, many districts in the Bay Area have provided parents with an actual time frame for digital learning instead of going month by month. Many of the districts have said the first semester is 100% digital. This gives parents time to devise a plan to support families. From what I understand, MUSD is not following the same protocol. And then we have Raj.
Mr. Forstner, before you go on,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
will clarify that, yes, that's true. We are applying for a waiver from the Public Health Department and have granted the waiver. We will have small targeted student support, small groups, sometime beginning around the 6th week into it. And so that's why we haven't said a definitive time.
Okay, the second comment comes from Raj Golokota of North Abbott Avenue. With school start less than 10 days away, we haven't yet had an opportunity to provide our child's who is starting kindergarten this year physical wellness report, which is ready and available with us to her school. We are also awaiting her assessment process. Can you please advise on when this might take place and whether there are any supplies we're required to collect from the school in person or procure on our own? And also on the logistics of the Educate Everywhere program.
That's a lot of questions. So I'm going to ask Assistant Soup of Learning and Development, Norma Rodriguez.
You, Superintendent Jordan. For the students starting on kindergarten, the principals will be sending a letter to all of the parents by next week as to the assignments and all of the protocols to follow.
And would you also mention to them about the website and MUSD Educate Everywhere resources?
Sure. There's also resources on our website, on our MUSD website, right in the front page in terms of registration protocols to follow.
You have 2 more, right, Scott?
Mr. Forstner.
Oh, I thought you were going to the Educate Everywhere. So the next comment is from Maricela Magana, and she is of Saturn Court. My daughter is now a senior in high school. Her school registration for her ID card is the 7th. but she is not able to attend that day because she is currently in another country. I was wondering if there would be another day when my daughter can register, or if she can register with my son since he is an incoming sophomore and would register on a different day.
Yes, they can go to their school website and contact the secretary or the principal or assistant principal directly.
Okay, and our last public comment for right now is from Rob Jung of North Park, Victoria. And he says, kudos to the district and its leaders in its efforts to reach all families in our community through the many Q&A sessions around the upcoming school year. In these times, effective communication is key for navigating these uncertain times, and MUSD has excelled in this endeavor. Again, congratulations on leading and demonstrating the culture of we. And that's the last comment at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Our next group is our tech tools, and that is led by our co-facilitators, Andrea Hutchison, Karen Muska, and several others. And also Sherry Miller-Lowe and Martha Chin. When you present, would you please make sure that you point out the tool on our website that parents can use for translation?
Okay. Good evening. I'm Sherry. I will be presenting this evening. Our group was made up of staff and teachers from elementary, middle school, high school, the district office, as well as parents. And when we got together, we wanted to make sure we identify tools that teachers can use on the distance learning as well as when we move into hybrid. We realized that when we address the tool issue, we're not only dealing with the staff, but we're also looking at parents. So we sent out 2 different surveys. The first one was to the teachers. The goal was to find out, what their needs are, find out what tools that maybe they would recommend, and then kind of general idea of where everybody, where they were at in reference to tools. When we started in the spring, some of us, based on the survey, we have a varied ability level. Some have very little technology experience, others have more. So we realized we really had to provide enough support so that teachers could move forward and be confident. So what we did was we realized, if you could go down to onto the next slide, we wanted to identify tools. One of the main things were tools that kind of mimicked what we did in the classroom, like whiteboard tools. When we asked the question, some teachers were like, I want something to do with whiteboard, but I don't know what I'm looking for. So we provided a spreadsheet that has various tools, anything from whiteboard tools to tools that can be collaborated. One of the main desires of teachers was to have tools that can engage students so that we're not just sitting in front of them on a computer, we're actually having them interact. So we did provide a series of tools for all of those different features. And then what we did was we provided the tools where they could locate. We were looking for tools that were at free or low cost. We gave them a description, and then we had how-to. So we had links either for video links, or it could be how-to that was just with pictures to help them navigate. And what we did was we went ahead, and these tools that we've provided to the staff, we sent and presented to them 2 weeks ago. We wanted to make sure that the staff was able to start working and practicing and checking out and figuring out the tools that would be the biggest benefit for them. The other thing we wanted to really capitalize on was our Google Suites and all the tools that are available under Google Suites, like Docs, Slides, Google Meets, Google Classroom. So we created another side to that same spreadsheet that has how-tos on the teacher side, but also how-tos for students and parents. With the idea and the intent is if student is struggling, they can push out a how-to on how to navigate maybe taking a picture and uploading an assignment, or how to turn in an assignment. We also had it so that they could push it out to parents, so if parents could support. The other side of this is we also did a survey to parents. We realized that this is a partnership between the teachers, staff, and parents, and we wanted to really recognize the needs of the parents. We know that it was pretty demanding and challenging in the spring, so we wanted to identify what those areas of need were. We came to, through the survey, we found out there was a need for consistency, and the district itself has addressed that now with the classroom management being either Seesaw for K2 and Google Classroom, and then on the meeting platform side, using Google Meets and Zoom. One of the benefits of Zoom and Google Meets should be rolling this out, but to be able to have breakout sessions so that students can collaborate. Along that same line, we also identified that parents were looking for a clear and consistent communication. So we wanted to make sure that that's where the spreadsheet to the teachers, where they could push out the how-tos on how to navigate, and so that parents can support their students. And again, to support, we created and built up spreadsheets. We actually identified a spreadsheet through exactly right there. So the top part is for staff. We had staff spreadsheet that includes all of the tools for the staff side for them to generate different activities, and then on the parent side to support their students. The bottom one is actually directly, you can find it directly on our homepage, MUSD.org. And previously in that little gray box, when you saw the Educate Everywhere, it's right that button, the second link. It says, if you're having issues with tech, we realized that sometimes, and I know from last year, I had parents emailing me at 2 o'clock in the morning. I had kids emailing me at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not on. So when a parent needs something, we wanted them to be able to go and access it without being hindered by waiting for the teacher. So here is where you can locate those. And again, we're talking about Google Suites. That first page, you can go back down to the link. There's the link on the where it says tech issues, right there. It'll take you right to it. Oh, scroll all the way to the bottom. Okay, so
let me pause here for a minute so
sorry.
people could see the different, pausing here for a minute so people see the different languages.
Yep. Okay. And then all the way at the bottom, the Google Suites platforms. You have the two at the top, but then if you move further down, one of our tech tools individuals was part of a tech tool, I think it was a Facebook page, a Facebook group. And this is a group of teachers and staff that are building this. This whole front is all Google Suite platforms. So there's a parent side to it, which is what you see here. There's also a staff side that you can link and go to as well. So for teachers, it's the staff side we're generating. But for parents, if you're trying to figure out how to help your child, you know, on Google Meets or how to do Google Classroom and how to navigate, these are how-to links all in this sheet. The bottom, there's two tabs at the bottom. For those parents who will be starting with Seesaw for K2, Seesaw is going to possibly be the classroom management for so there is a link at the bottom. There's tabs on the bottom. You can't see it here, but there's tabs on the bottom that will take you, and it's how-tos with using Seesaw. Flipgrid is another thing that will probably, a lot of teachers will be using. So we wanted to make sure that we had supports for parents moving forward. And all of these tools, the spreadsheet that you see there and the one for the teachers is dynamic. So it's growing. We rolled out, like I said, the spreadsheet to the teachers so they could start navigating. We're also asking teachers, if you find a tool that you think would be beneficial for, you know, a large population or a large group, that they can forward that to us and we can continue to add and generate more information there as well. Okay, one of the things I did want to mention is when we sent out the parent survey, we got over 1,300 responses, which was pretty great. And one of the things is we asked them they basically asked them to rate what the spring experience was. And, you know, we had some that were on the low end, we had some on the really high end, but I mean, the 7 and 8, you know, out of 10 was pretty much the average, which is pretty good considering we were just like jumping out of an airplane, just going with it without even any really major training. So I have a feeling with all of these extra supports, I think we're going to be moving in a much better direction and being more supportive of both staff as well as parents.
Thank you, Sherry. And for these Vietnamese, Chinese, Spanish versions, it translates what's on Google. Is that correct?
Google Translate, you can actually, I believe there's a button you can add to your computer, and it's Google Translate, and you can actually import whatever in English to translate it. It's not always exact translation, but it's obviously Chinese, Vietnamese, you know, there's not always exact translation, but it'll give you the general understanding moving forward.
And so that's what each of these videos shows parents how to do.
Yeah.
That are on this website.
I think so.
Scott, could we put those on the front page so that way parents, maybe right underneath the Tech Tools link? I know you can figure it out.
Sure, you want the translation
Yeah, so
version?
people see them.
Yes,
One
we
of
can
the things
definitely
I
do that.
did want to mention was one of the things we found out through our survey to parents as well as staff was that sometimes trying to find things on the district website is hard. So, and out of the Q&As that I went to several of them, the same kind of scenario was mentioned. So a lot of the tech tools, all the things that parents are trying to look for can be found directly from the main page. I've noticed there's a big shift toward moving things from the main page, so it's a lot easier to navigate and find.
Thank you. Our next subcommittee is special education, which broke itself into several committees, and they're led by Jacqueline Adams, Cynthia Walker, Nancy Pass, Rachel Stankovitz, and others. And so I would like to, and Vanessa Espedia, and I would like to invite you to share what you're working on.
So I'm going to do the introduction part of this and the overview. Special ed is a very complex program that actually many programs at every level for supporting students who have complex needs. So the committee broke itself into several different committees for each of the different levels of our district: preschool, elementary, middle school, high school, and DIS. And then each of those broke itself into several smaller committees based on the different types of programs. But the guiding questions that we used for each of our committees, the subcommittees, and as we talked, was how do we ensure the safety for staff and students, because some of the complex needs are a little different and require extra care for our staff and students. How do we improve on the instructional models that were implemented in the spring for students who have difficulty attending, for students who have difficulty learning, and again, with those complex needs? How do we deliver all of the different services and support services for our students with special needs? And then how do we align the special education programs with the general education programs at each of the different levels in the distance learning and virtual world? So those were our guiding questions. And the first part of it, the next presentation is going to be Rachel Stankovitz is going to present what's called our DIS services, which is our speech and occupational therapy and APE.
Rachel? Oh, there she is. It looks like she's in the participants and needs to be brought into the webinar.
We'll get her in right now.
Rachel Stankovitz.
I guess I could talk longer on the overview while she's doing that.
Yeah,
As I said, each of the different committees, when we're talking about our services, the students with special needs, the services range from specialized academic instruction to speech to occupational therapy, adaptive PE, individual assistance for students. So we looked at all of those different needs for the students and how do we best provide those in a virtual environment as well as in an in-person environment when we bring students in for safety, given the parameters of trying to keep social distance and protective equipment and those types of things.
Okay, did you find Rachel?
Hello, sorry, I'm just trying to make my screen smaller. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing the plan for the speech language pathologists and occupational therapists. Just a little background, every school has an SLP and OT assigned to them. We work with students from pre-K through post-secondary, and we have an average caseload of 50 plus students. We will continue engaging in online learning. We have spent time researching new ideas and interactive online resources to use with our students. We will continue to collaborate with gen ed and special ed teachers, and we hope to increase parent education. Something new is we plan to send paper copies of materials home prior to the sessions so that students can have a copy of what we are working on during the speech session. For safety, we have requested additional PPE to deliver services safely. We talked about the size and location of many of our rooms. This is a concern. Many of our rooms are not adequate for this type of situation. They're either too small to be 6 feet away, or they don't have a window that opens out or a door that opens for fresh air. And then lastly, we work with the entire school, and we often work at more than one school site, so we cannot follow the recommended guidelines for a cohort. There would be too much cross-contamination across students and schools the way our job is run. For the future, as we phase in Educate Everywhere, we will need to continue discussing how to best provide services for our students to ensure the safety of students, staff, and families. And then next, with Vanessa Espedia, will be sharing the next 2 slides.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
So for our special education programs, we divided it into 2 slides. The first slide here is for our special day classes. That would mean anywhere from, and I'm just going to go from preschool through elementary school, and Jonathan Mock after will talk about secondary. So these are our special day classes from preschool up until 6th grade. We really want them to be able to follow a lot of the same schedules of general education. So that would mean right now, while we're all doing online until we get the waiver to move into phase 2, we would all be doing online learning. Once we were able to get the waiver, if some of our students needed targeted intervention, we would, and we had PPE in place and all the things on board from the parent and the staff side and the paraeducators, we would allow students to come back in small cohorts and be able to support them while maintaining social distance, which is always can be a challenge with students with more complex needs and many younger students as well, as little as preschool. So the smaller the cohort, the better, just like we were describing. Flexible assignments for paraeducators, that kind of will go into my next slide, but we want to be able to be flexible depending on how many students we have coming and if classes, it varies and such. When conditions allow, if staff and parents are willing, like I just said, bring students back to campus for targeted instruction, and we need to work on more resources to help engage our students with online learning while we do that. We know it's a struggle and we want to be able to find more resources. We're excited about the PD coming next week. A lot of those things will be wonderful for all of our teachers to learn about. For the second slide is for resource specialist program. So every school site has a resource specialist. Elementary sites have 1 at each site. And preschool does not have a resource specialist program. So for that, most of our students or all of our students are in general education for the most part of the day. So there can be a lot of coordination between the resource specialist and their paraeducator to help support students. That's where we look at flexible para assignments. Can we find a way that we can support all students at our site, because there'll be many more students to support all over campus, and less adult support generally is how it works. So we want to be flexible. For online learning,
Again, having small group sessions we feel is really important. It's just, and the same thing, bringing students back if we can in phase 2. We find a need for certain students, and we have the protection in place, and we can make that happen. Then we want to definitely do that for some of our students in resource. And we just want to be able to maintain the cohorts. That's a big thing we're trying to figure out. And that goes back into what Rachel was talking about. Resource specialists serve many of students throughout grade levels. And so it's a bigger of a challenge to keep smaller cohorts. It's a little bit easier in special day classes to do so. And continue to look for strategies to engage students. We have to continue to find ways to make it meaningful for them, to keep them safe, but also to keep them learning and healthy and educated. So continue to learn about those things.
Thank you. Mr. Mock.
So for secondary education on all 3 levels, RSP, SDC, and CBI, we want to ensure that there's safety for teachers and students. That's probably our primary concern. We want to be able to delineate clearly how the period by period schedule works and provide guidelines and expectations of online learning. We've worked to add resources to enhance distance learning through digitability and Naviance, as well as being more flexible with both Google Meets and Zoom.
Jonathan.
As this
This is Board Member Norwood. You ran by a couple of acronyms early on. If you could be so kind to, when you do share an acronym, give us the definition of it as well.
Sure. So SDC and RSP, I believe Vanessa went over, and in the high school level, we also have CBI, which is community-based instruction for some of our students. And so what we want to do is we've added digitability and Naviance to be able to enhance their education through distance learning. As this is a unique process, we want to ensure that communication is open in all directions. We also want to be able to continue to amend and meet the needs of the IEPs for the students. As a whole, we want to support our students, and the best way to ensure that we are ready is to work together as a super team of paraprofessionals, specialists, parents, teachers, and students, in making sure that we do what we can, and knowing that things may change, but that we are ready to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Our next group is our English Learners Support Group, and that was facilitated by Parwinder Johal.
Good evening, everyone. One of our parents from the committee, Amil Gatani, she will present these slides.
Hi, I'm Amil Gatani, and I'm the parent of an 8th grade English learner at Thomas Russell. And when we approached this challenge as a subcommittee, we identified 3 guiding principles to help keep us focused on the areas that resonated through our initial discussions. For example, we wanted to make sure that English learners continue to develop language fluency while they're away from brick and mortar classrooms. We also wanted to make sure that we engage the partnerships with their families to help them create a culture of advocacy. We need to ensure that our systems will help reinforce a district-wide community that prioritizes English learners and supports teachers and students during these challenging times. The next slide. Thanks. We would measure success on our ability to create successful partnerships with parents and families. And to do this, we need to reinforce professional development opportunities for our teachers to ensure that they have the tools to address these new challenges. It's important that we design a rigorous instruction program that will engage our students to keep them challenged. With everyone being remote, it's even more important that our students stay connected. As such, we also value the affirmation of each student's cultural and linguistic identity in the classroom. To do this, we intend to start the school year with different resources like parent workshops, including workshops on how to use translating tools. We would identify bilingual liaisons in the community, and of course, we would continue the DLAC and ELAC advisory teams for feedback, support, and a sense of community. In order to ensure our instructional program is sufficient, we're proposing that prioritizing the acceleration of English language development through structured opportunities to interact with peers in English in a safe place, and to create a dedicated ELD block in instruction day. To affirm and build students' culture and language identity, we would emphasize the celebration of our diversity through culturally responsive lessons and celebrate student culture and identity. And of course, the learner would be provided with resources and literacy in their home language when that's needed. Now we understand that this, although these lists are exhaustive, they may not be comprehensive, so we would continue to collaborate, navigate, and advocate through the school year. The next slide. So the scope of an English learner is a challenging one. In addition to the challenges that we are all facing in general, EL parents are doing it while navigating it in a different language. Due to these complications, we need to advocate even more strongly on behalf of them to help provide these students with an equal opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Scott?
And you want me to read the public comments? Okay, we've got a few more. This one is from Sabine Ul-Haq of Saratoga Drive. She says, what will happen to draft IEPs? Will they be honored from current school year? Also, when these students will start, when will these students start hybrid? Any deadline, and what are the virtual time and hybrid time? Thanks.
I'll start with, again, we need to have our waiver approved by the Public Health Department for elementary. At this time, the state is not allowing for a waiver at the secondary level. And once we get the waiver, we can start to bring in targeted groups in person. And also up to teachers feeling that everything is safe and secure to do so. And Assistant Superintendent Rodriguez, would you share the response for the question 2 that Sabine has is, what about those IEPs that they had drafted in the spring? Will those be honored in the fall?
Those will be honored in the fall. However, we are about to send a letter to all of our parents in terms of the PWRs, which is the parent written request for the IEPs.
Thank you.
Okay, and our next public comment is from Antoinette Arulraj of Leeway. And her comment is, when will we get the plan or daily timetable or the timings for class with breakdown for each class? Are the 180 minutes going to be continuously online, or how does it work? Are they required to wear uniforms even for distance learning?
I'll answer the last part of the question, and then for the rest of it, we have our subcommittees that will provide the answers to that. And as far as uniforms, no, we will not be requiring uniforms for distance learning. And when the time comes that we can provide in-person support, we won't necessarily be requiring the uniforms then either.
Superintendent Jordan, could you also share the value if parents want to consider uniforms? Not that we'll be requiring it, but what the uniforms do provide to students as a part of this process?
Certainly. Well, actually, let me ask Assistant Superintendent Rodriguez, because we've had conversations about the uniforms and the mindset that a uniform helps to establish for students, even if they're distance learning.
So can you repeat that question, please?
Yes, would you please share with the public the value that wearing a uniform during the distance learning time does provide?
Sure. So the conversations have always been about what is the purpose of the uniform, and a uniform provides the students the sense of continuity, the sense of normalcy, as you should say. And so the kids get up ready, get up in the morning ready to go to school virtually. They dress up and they're ready to learn.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question comes from Allison McDonald and of Kevenair Drive. What is the plan for training substitute teachers for both distance learning and the hybrid model?
Assistant Superintendent of HR, Mr. Brunson.
Can you hear me okay, Scott? Okay. So the plan right now is that we'll be contacting our substitutes in order to put together a comprehensive plan so that we can ensure that they are able to log in and use the Google Meets and also our Zoom platforms. And we'll be putting that plan together pretty soon in the near future. So be aware of our analysts contacting you, and our go-to subs and Mr. James will help with that service as well.
Thank you.
Okay, our next comment is from Tina Fatanat of Blue Spruce Court. And she asks, will third grade students still have to prepare for the CASP despite only engaging in distance learning?
Assistant Super Learning and Development.
Thank you for asking that question. And the information that we have received so far from the state, the California Department of Education, is that though they waived the CASP this year, they are not planning on waiving it for next year. So we need to prepare for CASP to take place for our third graders and up, including our 11th graders this year.
Thank you.
And what year is that? Do we need to prepare? I mean, I know we're going to continuously prepare, but what year is the CASP going to be back in effect? Is that you're talking about 2022?
Thank you. And CASP is California Assessment of Progress, and I forgot the other P. Thank you. Performance and progress.
Okay, the next comment is from Maha Haradin of Fallen Leaf Drive. Are we going to be provided with textbooks, resources, and supplies? With our last experience, printing was costly.
Each school site will share their plan for that. And yes, we will be providing textbooks and supplies to the same extent as we have before. And I think we should move on now to the presentation and catch some more questions later. All right. This next slide is one that if you've been to our parent Q&A, you're very familiar with it. When we looked at the spring and some of the elements that were greatly needed to put in place for this fall, and actually the state is in alignment with us, that is that we will have daily attendance. So there's our accountability for making sure learners are available each day to learn. We will have to document weekly student engagement. Documentation might look like signing into the Google Classroom, responding to questions, providing the assignments that are assigned, looking at assessments and projects. And each week those will be documented. Assignments will be tracked, and we will be generating grades at the secondary level. At the elementary level, we will continue with performance-based assessment as we have in prior school years. And for regular progress updates to parents, at the secondary level, they will be able to see where their children are as far as assignments and the grades by logging into Aries. At the elementary level, they'll be able to do that through Google Classroom. And then finally, we need to make sure that there's daily contact, daily live contact with teachers and students. That might look be synchronously with large groups, as we're doing right now with 247 of our wonderful community and parents. And if the lines are down, it could look like telephones or instantaneous text and email. But every single day, there needs to be live contact between teacher and student. Now I'd like to bring up our curriculum assessment and grading subcommittee, which was also a large committee similar to special ed, and it worked on different aspects of curriculum assessment and grading. And that was led by Greg Barnes, Nicole Klein, Shangri-La Ramazan, Kelsey Taku, and Paula Hoy.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Barnes, and I had the privilege of serving on the Curriculum Assessment and Grading Subcommittee over the summer. There were 25 of us who served on that committee. We put in over 300 hours, and I want to thank each and every single one of them. We had wonderful stakeholder representation across elementary and secondary school sites. And of course, we wouldn't have gotten as far as we did without the contributions from our parents and our students. What you'll see tonight are 3 slides. The recommendations are tiered out into district, site-based, and finally individual classroom recommendations. And here to get us started is principal and parent, Nicole Klein.
Thank you, Greg. So I'll be going over the elementary recommendations. And to start us off, we have a recommendation for the district level proposals or recommendations are geared to create continuity across the elementary schools. So we would like to propose a semester grading system to just help the Milpitas community with the continuity across the high school. We'd like to propose the use of Google Classroom at all levels just to further allow our parents the continuity to access to the teachers and the grades and from all levels, TK through high school. We want to focus the beginning of the school year, focusing on building relationships and the social emotional learning, because we know that that's what's needed at this time. And we've created a tiered engagement plan that also links to the SST and the SARB process to really reach the root cause of lack of engagement to support our students and our families based on their needs. And another major shift that we're proposing at the elementary level is a goal setting conference rather than our traditional parent teacher conferences, because we really want to establish strong partnerships with our families. And we think by shifting from a meeting with our families that's geared more about going over a report card, if we make it more about goal setting, then we truly have a partnership with our families. And Greg, for secondary?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Similarly, we're asking and encouraging our secondary school sites, namely our middle schools, to move from a trimester to a semester model. All of the other recommendations that you see there are really in line with the recommendations and what's been established by the state of California. So with respect to 240 minutes, that refers to the minimum amount of instructional minutes, which can be comprised of synchronous and asynchronous. When I think of synchronous, I think of synchronized swimming, everybody in the pool doing the same thing at the same time. Asynchronous would be everything beyond that. It could be online, small group, it could be online individual, or it could be independent time offline. Additionally, as Cheryl mentioned in her previous slide, the state rather has recommended and established we need daily communication, and we really want our school sites to establish clear and consistent communication through daily participation, tracking attendance, weekly engagement. And then it goes without saying that we're not going to be able to reach all students all the time, every single day. So what do we do about that? And that's the re-engagement plan that, again, has been established by the state that we're currently working on to make sure that each and every single one of our students are reached.
And to continue to talk about the continuity across elementary schools, we're looking at the site level. So now it's the continuity from one class to the next. We want to make sure that we're focusing on the essential grade level standards that are determined based on the school site, because every school site has various needs, and we want to make sure that we're honing and targeting that work. As Greg mentioned, the
conversation about synchronous and asynchronous learning. We want that to be consistent across the grade levels at the school site. And a revamping of our current SST process, because going digital or virtual is going to be very different than the instruction and the interactions that we have daily with our students. So we want to also update our practices with our student success teams, SST. We also want to make sure that we're engaging our classified team for support. We know that they're critical to the success of our programs, and we acknowledge that we need to establish ways that our classified staff can support work that's different from the typical school year or a traditional school year. We also want to make sure that logistical and procedural norms are normed across the grade levels and across the school sites, and also take into consideration when we're providing feedback and grades to students, the barriers that our students are facing. So it links back to the relationships that we establish. We want to make sure that we're really taking that into account. And every student's situation is going to be very different from one another. And our job is to make sure that we're providing equitable access.
Over the last few years, the district has taken a lot of pride in facilitating professional learning communities. Maybe you've heard that referred to as PLC work at the school sites, and that is departments and or team members working together, collaborating on everything from curriculum choices to the identification of specific power standards and of course calibration around grading. And so in many respects, we're going to continue that practice. Ask the sites to continue the phenomenal work that they've been doing over the year to ensure that students at their site, again, across departments or teams, are getting consistent curriculum and being assessed consistently. Lastly, it goes without saying that we really want to make sure that the first week of school, and you've heard this before from some of our other subcommittees, is really focused on establishing that social emotional connection with students, and to have activities and specific goals in mind for really making sure that we're reaching through those screens and connecting with our students as emotionally and as humanely as possible. Finally, again, the issue of constant, clear communication, not only to our students, but to our parents, so they know what to expect weekly from individual class times as we move forward through the year.
And then, as Greg mentioned, in the classroom level, we're going to really focus on building strong relationships from the get-go, and creating regular flexible assessments is going to be an important critical piece that we're going to look at providing some professional development at the school sites to make sure that the flexible piece of assessments is really shining through. We want to increase the digital citizenship because our students are going to be digital a lot more frequently. So upping that to at least 3 digital citizenships lessons versus the 1 that has been typically required annually. And weekly progress monitoring and engaging our students and families in one-on-ones is going to be essential to the success of our distance learning and hybrid models for phases 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I think lastly for secondary, what it really boiled down to was formative, frequent, flexible assessments, trying to move away from that whole class synchronous instruction as much as possible and trying to get into small groups or, if possible, one-on-one connections with students. And then finally, figuring out a way to do quality versus quantity. So historically, if you gave a 10-question quiz, maybe you give a 2-question essay based to help promote more authentic responses from students. Next slide. Nicole, I don't know if you want to add anything here, but this is essentially a link to the whole summary of the elementary, secondary, and our assessment resources.
It definitely goes into a lot more detail about.
Yeah, not something we need to click on and go through, but it's there if anyone wants to peruse through it.
Thank you very much. Our next subcommittee is our scheduling minutes and
attendance.
Hours and attendance. Thank you. We have Brett Weber and Deanna Satan, who were our facilitators for that subcommittee.
Thank you. We were a great team that collaborated really well with members from each of the levels elementary, middle school, and high school. Take it away, Brett.
I hesitated. So, second to last presentation. Our minutes were laid down by the state. The minimum amount of minutes are on the screen there for you, 180, 230, and 240 minutes. These are very much minimum minutes. These minutes can be made up during the day synchronously or asynchronously, to follow on with Dr. Barnes's image of synchronized swimming, which I try to avoid. Or asynchronous, which is when the students are working on whatever they need to be working on. It could be homework, could be assignments, projects, whereas synchronous is in front of the screen with the teachers. So those minimum minutes have been laid down by the state. We're not a minimum district, and so we'll follow the minimum and do the best we can. Next slide, please.
In regards to attendance, daily attendance is required. So we are going to ask that teachers provide families with very, very clear expectations and a daily schedule format that they can follow that will be consistent from week to week. We know that was a challenge last year with teachers updating daily schedules that would change. And so it was kind of hard for families to have consistency, but that's as we were figuring things out. Now we can go into the school year with a much more solidified plan. All students will be expected to attend and adhere to the class expectation per the teacher's instructions, whether at home learning or eventually in the hopes that we get to on-campus learning. Media release forms, we're going to work on updating those so they can meet more of the distance learning expectations that we'll need to provide to families and students this year. Things like having your cameras on so that you can engage with the teacher, being muted when the teacher's giving instructions, et cetera, et cetera. A formative assessment will need to happen every day to measure engagement. That can be in many different forms like exit tickets, Google Forms, writing prompts, etc. Attendance is going to go back to being marked present, tardy, or absent. And as Brett had mentioned, engagement, like the minutes, is a combination of actually being in real time with the teacher and submission of assignments.
Next slide, please. And again, and again. Thank you. So our expectations for attendance in Aries, at the elementary school, in fact, at all levels, attendance will be taken in Aries. For the elementary school, it will be during the first 30 minutes and submitted no later than 1 p.m., robocalls starting at 5 p.m. At the secondary level, because our class period is so much longer, it is a 105-minute block, and we'll show you that in a moment. It's a 105-minute block of 90 minutes of instruction. Attendance will be taken at the beginning and later in the period to show that the student has actually stayed there. The attendance is due by 5 p.m. and robocalls will start then too. With technology helping, Google Meet and Zoom now takes attendance so we know when the student checks in. What is interesting about Zoom is as they're keeping up with our needs, it actually shows every time a student may check in, check out, and then check back in. And so with the Zoom reports that we have, we can actually say to the student, you checked out for 15 minutes and then came back again. And all of that will be documented so that we can make sure that it stays as a documentation. The exit ticket at the end, as Deanna has just said, we could use that at the end of the period, or we could just show when they log out again. To keep the instruction moving, tardy will remain at 5 minutes. It is the expectation that students will be in class at the same time, certainly for the secondary level, as if they were showing up at school. At all levels, attendance clerks, counselors, support staff will follow up with the families on the following day to monitor attendance and engagement. There will be an attendance intervention plan which will be shared. During the first 10 days of school, it is important that we have a warm body count. And so the attendance will have to be very, very strictly submitted and that comes down to the teachers, the instructors, during the first 10 days, that we need that submitted during the first 15 minutes. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Okay. Phase one, we all know that we're starting the year 100% distance learning. So this is a template that can be used by teachers in conjunction with their grade levels, with their admin teams, to brainstorm the best structure for the week, to make sure that we meet the minimum requirements and that our students are receiving all aspects of curriculum thoroughly, to receive that rigorous, robust educational experience that previous groups had mentioned. Again, this is a template that we're providing to each site so that teachers can have just something to bounce off of, that this is a structure that could work with modifications for every site level depending on what is agreed upon at the school. It details how every day there's some kind of whole group check-in with your class. Some days, like Tuesdays and Thursdays, will focus, as an example, more heavily on small group instruction targeted to individual student needs. Each day lists recess as a break, but teachers can read their students best, and more little breaks can be thrown in throughout the day as needed. On Wednesdays, that is designated to be an at-home learning day for all students, to be more independently working with some kind of check-in from the teacher so that attendance can be taken, and possibly a good opportunity to give instructions for students of what they're to work on for the remainder of the day, so that the teacher has the time for some PD, some prep, some time to maybe engage with family members in a deeper way. It kind of gives them that flexibility. Phase two will be dependent upon the waiver that we're applying for, but the hope is that as conditions improve, when they improve, that we can bring students on campus in small groups, those of our more vulnerable populations that would benefit from being on campus with instructors receiving that education, that we will start phasing in students slowly. And the ultimate goal would be by the, hopefully, at some point in the year, that we could have larger groups of students on campus in a kind of a rotational basis, maybe half the students on campus learning, half at home learning, and then they switch. Similar structure to phase one, but this is in person with a teacher on campus. Middle school, their model is all of our models are very similar now for phases 1 through 3, with the structure of periods throughout the day where you're meeting with your teacher. And the middle school model, there are longer blocks of time, which you'll see when Brett presents this high school level models, that there is that Wednesday again, where all students are learning independently at home with some kinds of check-in from their teacher for attendance, possibly more small group work. And there's lunch embedded, there's breaks embedded for students so that they can balance their needs and the needs of the curriculum.
So the high school bell schedule would look like a block schedule. So there are 3 periods per day, 8:30 to 10:15, 105 minutes, then 10:35 to 12:20, 105 minutes, 1:10 to 2:55, 105 minutes. And so this block schedule mirrors the day at high school, 8:30 to 3 o'clock. However, it is a block schedule. Monday and Thursday, we would see periods 1, 3, and 5. Tuesdays and Fridays, we would see periods 2, 4, and 6. Like the other grade levels, Wednesday is left out, and let me talk about them in a moment. So it is a block schedule. We very intentionally broke it up: 1, 3, 5 odd periods, and then 2, 4, 6 even periods on Monday and Tuesday, and then repeated Thursday and Friday, so that the block periods that work together, so first and second or third and fourth, see their teacher more often. So they see their teachers almost every day except for Wednesdays. I have freshman English first and second period. It's a block. I get to see them Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They're a higher need grouping. The 105 minutes, let's just talk about that for a moment. It is a long time. Try being a teacher. But it is a long period. It is not intended that our high school teachers, our high school teachers would teach for that entire period. It is allowing some flexibility for the teachers to teach, perhaps the 20 minutes, 30 minutes at the beginning, teach a concept, let the students go off asynchronously, thank you, Dr. Barnes, to go off and do an assignment, do something, come back the last 15 minutes. It could be that we set an icebreaker, set something for them to do at the beginning, and then we come back half an hour later and we talk about it and review. So it is a tremendously flexible plan. Wednesdays at the moment with phase 1 would be set for office hours, staff collaboration, PD meetings, prep time, etc. There would be one period, as it is required by the state, there will be one period where the students will have to check in. And that would be for attendance purposes. It could also be for social emotional learning. And then the students would go off and work on their own assignments independently. Attendance, as was mentioned earlier, will be taken every period, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and at least one period on a Wednesday. So it will be a requirement that the students come onto Zoom, show their cameras, and be present to be counted for attendance on Wednesday. Like was mentioned earlier, the courses will be graded on an A through F scale, and it will count for their GPA. Teachers will be using Aries to communicate grades, progress, and attendance like if we were at school. So that's phase 1 very much. Phase 2 would begin once we're off the watch list, and this will be as we bring in smaller groups, targeted students with learning challenges, vulnerabilities, distance learning struggles. That would be based very much on the public health department. And then phase 3, once everything is safe and we are closer to a vaccine after the election, and we can then talk about bringing the students back into a different mode. If I may hand over to Principal Stice to cover Kell Hills, please. I hope Principal Stice is here.
I am here. I just
There we go. Thank you.
my mic. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Weber. So the plan for Calaveras Hills High School is very, very similar because of the learning needs of our students and the shorter time schedule that we have for our schedule, because we are going to try to stick to as closely as we can what the schedule will be like when we come back to school. We are having students in class the full 4 days, with Wednesday also being similar to Milpitas High School in the sense that they will not have a full day on Wednesdays. As you can see, it is a block schedule. 8:30 to 10 is an example of a period, and our periods are going to be 90 minutes. School will be 8:30 to 1:45. All students will be expected to follow their schedule and log into their classes on time. Parents and guardians are going to receive a training on August 10th regarding some parent resources that are available in Google Classroom. We're also looking at moving our back to school night up into August so that we can establish the culture, get to know some of our students right away and their families, and that way everyone gets on the same page very early on. We're also going to have an attendance and engagement task force that is being formed to follow up with students who are not engaged. The teachers will also follow up but at a certain point it will come to administration and the task force on attendance and engagement to find out what the barrier is and how we can help. All teachers are going to be trained in the Character Strong program, which is about how to build a strong community, even though you're doing it virtually. Again, just like the other schools, all courses are graded. And moving on to phase 2 and phase 3, when we come back in person, because of our class size, we will be able to accommodate 2 groups of students. So there will be a group A on Mondays and Tuesdays, and group B will attend Thursday and Friday, again with Wednesday being for advisory class virtually and some in-person tutoring and intervention. Hopefully that explains adequately the Cal Hill schedule.
Thank you. And our subcommittee on childcare, Jerry Lopez.
Thank you, Superintendent Jordan. We had the pleasure, along with food services, IT, and district office personnel, of working through the summer and actually opening up our doors to students and parents. And you see a picture right there of some of our students socially distanced in class, 6 feet apart. Luckily, we have 6-foot-long tables, but we concluded our program. In fact, we are to conclude our program at the end of this week. 9 weeks we were in operation. We carried out operation with 1 preschool class, and we held to the CDE CSPP ratio of 10-1 as opposed to the health department of 12-1. We also had 1 TKK class and 1 school age. We started off by providing our services to essential workers as the state had suggested and encouraged us. And we provided distance learning packets and support for 60 students during the summer. We then are rolling right into the regular year, which starts on 8/13/20, much like everybody else in the school district. And we will be, I do believe, until we get the waivers, the only program that will have students on site. And we will continue with our preschool session of, and then 1 TKK session. We will add 1 school age session to our Rose site and 1 school age session to our Senate site. And this, of course, we're still calling parents. We're still seeing a lot of parents who are hesitant to send their children in, and others who are taking advantage of our program. We will also be running out of the Sunny Hill site distance learning program for 90 students. The next one. And so what we also plan to do was support our district team, our teachers particularly, during this phase 1 period. And we did send out a survey and asking who was interested in either benefiting from our existing CDC programs. One thing that we're doing is we're still waiting for guidance from the state to tell us if they want to focus our services and provisions still on essential workers. Luckily, the essential workers that we were provided services for during the summer were already our existing parents. And so it was a nice meld. And at this point, when we sent out the survey to the staff, we had a number of staff that showed interest, but the majority of them, the vast majority, are really interested in services once phase 3 starts. So right now, what we did was those who were identified, we were able to, a couple of them, put them into our existing CDC program, including an essential worker from the community that reached out to us. And at this point, we're at capacity. We do have the possibility of opening up a couple of other sites, a couple of other sessions, if either the MUSD staff or essential workers in the area manifest themselves. However, I need to stress that we're still waiting on guidance from the state. And once the state dictates what our path has to be, then at that point we have to go that way. But then we will still work to try and create programs that will benefit the needs of both our staff and our parent essential worker population. So when we get to phase 3, we will once again survey, and it'll be an entirely different situation at that point. And I think more MUSD staff and essential workers might need the service at that point. And it's just a matter of keeping our fingers on the pulse and making sure that we can hear the voice of those who are interested, and then move very, very fast to create those services, secure staffing, and then secure the sites. Been working very nicely with Nancy Pass and Lori over at Senate. They've been very helpful and very willing to open up their sites for us if those students and those parents manifest themselves. And so, as I said, the last point is that we do want to be able to provide services not just to our identified population, which we've worked with for the last several years, but also for the essential workers in our community and also the MUSD staff.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. And that's the last of our 14 subcommittees reports. And we have time now for more Q&A.
Okay, we have a few more public comments. Let's see what we got. This is from Sabine Ulhak of Saratoga Drive. Will the attendance rules apply to special needs kids too, as it was not a very likable experience by parents? Thanks.
Yes, per IEPs, the attendance will also be required of students in the special ed program.
Okay, the next question is from Josephine Nguyen of Temple Drive, and she asks, "Thank you, everyone. Sometimes not all of my students can get online. I beg the board and teachers to have the class recorded so that my kids don't miss a lesson to learn. Also, will weekly progress reports be provided? How will I know what my kids are learning and what they're supposed to learn? How will I know what to help with? Packets were horrible last year. No feedback from teachers. Just
So thank you. And I want to emphasize again that our team did the best that they could with a little preparation and knowledge behind it. And there were several other questions in that one, and I'd like to see if we have any of our panelists who would like to respond.
Yes, Mr. Weber.
I can take the part about the teachers being recorded. While it is wonderful to have technology, and while it is great to be able to record so that your student can watch it again at their convenience and take a nap or sleep in or just stop paying attention, unfortunately, this new distance learning needs to replicate as closely as possible the in-school situation. And it is not reality that a teacher would record a lesson in the classroom so that your student could watch it at some other time. And so recording will be up to the individual teachers for the most part. I will say that we do understand, and speaking as a high school teacher, we do understand that there is the added complication of technology. And so the key to this whole situation is communication. If your technology is working, communicate with your teacher. If your technology breaks down, communicate with your teacher. If you have other issues that are causing complication, communicate with your teacher. But we cannot, for privacy reasons, require our teachers to record our lessons.
Thank you. And with the last piece that Mr. Weber stated about with the privacy laws and ed code, while we can't require our teachers to record, I know that many of them do see the value of having recordings so that the students can go back and rewind when they miss something. And we will continue to encourage our teachers to do that.
I record my classes.
Thank you, Mr. Weber.
Okay, the next public
There
comment.
were more questions in there.
Yep.
There were more questions.
I'm sorry.
So could you go back to some of the questions? I think
Sure. Will weekly progress reports be provided?
Yes, the weekly progress reports in the format for secondary of parents being able to check in on Aries to see what the statuses of grades reported, and then for the elementary, the checking into the Google Classroom. And again, each teacher will share with the parents how they can go about checking on the progress of their students, their children.
Okay, and then she had also asked, how will I know what my kids are learning and what they are supposed to learn?
Do we have one of our other teachers who is a panelist and subcommittee member who could talk to maybe describe how you're planning your class and what it will look like so that parents will know what the students are supposed to be learning?
Superintendent Jordan, I'd like to add, if we can, do we know what grade level the parent?
You know, she, to the question, do you have any kids, any children attending MUSD schools? If yes, please name the schools. The only answer she put was yes.
Okay.
But she does say comment about packets. Now, packets were only elementary, is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
So could one of our teachers please respond with an example of how you plan to lay out your class expectations about, and also informing students and parents about what the learning goals are for the week? I think it would be helpful for parents to understand how, what you're thinking about how you're going to design your days.
We can't hear you, Kelsey.
I can give it a try. This is Krista Davis. I'm at Weller. I think it's gonna be very different for every site and every grade and every school. But last year, what I did that I got good feedback from was that every week on Monday, I sent out an email kind of highlighting what the week would be like, what upcoming like spirit days I was doing or what topics we'd be focusing on. And then every day I sent a daily schedule. I know some teachers did not do a daily schedule. It was like it's like a case by case. Some teachers sent out a weekly schedule at the beginning of the week with what they wanted. But I think a lot of it, I think there's gonna be a lot of change this year. I think that's why a lot of the committees suggested having a back to school night very early so that the teachers can then share with the parents the first week, like, here's what I'm gonna do whole class, here's what I'm gonna do small group, and here's what I'm gonna do family work or whatever. So I think that's kind of where a lot of it, like where a lot of us are at right now.
Thank you. And I put back on the screen the description to give people an idea that Deanna Satan shared with us earlier.
And I think Kelsey wants to share something. Yes, Kelsey.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Hi, my name is Kelsey Taku, and I am a 5th grade teacher at Kurtner Elementary. And I agree that I think it'll be different for every teacher and every site, but I can just share a little bit about my plans for communication. So over the summer, I've made a classroom website, and on that website includes all the information for both my students and parents, and it has links to everything. So the MUSD website, Kurtner's website, Parent Square, everything that they will need in order to make sure their students are well prepared. I also have a parent section with expectations, welcome information, how-to videos, all my recorded lessons. And I also plan to really use Google Classroom in order to communicate the academic progress their students are making. And I also plan to send emails frequently to parents to ensure we're both on the same page.
Thank you, Ms. Taku.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Carol, can I add one thing, which is that I know that many sites are going to be utilizing the first 2 days of school to go over all of those classroom expectations, procedures, and how the whole plan is gonna roll out. And I know that a lot of schools are utilizing that Thursday and Friday first days of school to do that.
Good, thank you.
And I think Ms. Kadoran has her hands up.
Yes, I have my virtual hand raised.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention to parents who are listening, to just know that teachers are still on summer break, and many of us have worked through the summer to prepare in one way or another to support your students. It is our profession. It's something we're passionate about, but it was extremely challenging to learn to build and fly the plane, just as challenging as it was for you as parents to be stuck at home and to have to kind of support your kid. So I appreciate very much what my colleagues said and what Carl Stice said as well. My grade level will work as a team. We have a brand new member of our team at Spangler. We haven't even met her yet. We're on summer break, and as soon as next week we'll be back and we will be connecting 4 people, and as a grade level we will then make some decisions about what we need to do. But it is not scripted, and it is very, very complex, and the work that's been done by these committees is outstanding. I mean, to have the schedule that we have sitting in front of us right now is unbelievably helpful to all of the teachers. And I just really want to advocate for ourselves that we must take it carefully, slowly, and we've done a lot of prep, but we haven't done it all. And we're in a pandemic. We didn't plan to do this. And so globally, we're in a pandemic. And I feel like we need to remind ourselves sometimes that this is not just a choice to like, oh, we're going to go do distance learning now. No, it's a pandemic. We're all in a tricky place. So that compassion that we can hold for one another and the anxiety that we all hold, just to remember that we're all working as hard as we can, but we all also need to take care of ourselves and check in and out as we're able. And, every single person here is going to do their absolute best. And it's not going to look the same. And so I just felt strongly that I needed to speak up on behalf of all of MUSD, really, and how hard we've been working.
Thank you. And Mr. Weber, did you have your hand up too? You good? Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next comment comes from Kavita Sridhar of Butler Street. This is a comment for the special ed in the fall. What are the options for the students who are completely disengaged? Screen-based learning failed miserably in the spring and summer for our students with different learning needs. 6 weeks of no learning is too long for them. Please advise on what options parents can resort to in order to ensure their child does not further regress.
First, before I ask our new Director of Student Services and Special Ed to provide some insight, I do want to say that, yes, we acknowledge that it was extremely difficult for some of our learners, especially those with the highest needs, to engage online. And we, as very much as our parents, want to do the best that we can for them in the circumstances that we have, and providing that conditions are safe. And I have to remind everybody that at this point in time, the state is not allowing for us to apply for secondary waivers, only elementary waivers. And with that, I would like to invite Mary Jude Dorpinghouse to share her insights about how we might be able to better support this fall our highest needs learners in our special ed program.
Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Jordan. Good evening, parents and guardians and staff. Yes, I think that as we look ahead, I do want to piggyback on what Superintendent Jordan mentioned, that in the spring we were thrust into this. And as the prior speaker mentioned, we've spent a lot of time this summer and throughout the spring learning better ways to engage our students. And I think we're all fairly can say that it was a steep learning curve. Also, some of the special education staff mentioned that they're looking and exploring new platforms to better engage our students. And I think that's a full acknowledgement by the staff that we want to do better and that there are ways to do better. So there are different platforms that can be used. There are different styles of engagement that can help students. And we are aware that some of the students don't do as well on a virtual platform. We also are aware that some of our students have actually engaged better because of that flexibility that they've had. So when we look at our students with more intensive needs, and we're thinking about the platforms that we can use, we want to collaborate with you and use you as well as our other educators to help students. Perhaps we can see some of the students instead of in larger groups, in smaller groups. Perhaps we can have time where we consult with you to help support your students on their types of individualized needs. Perhaps there's better platforms that we've learned about that might be used this this fall to be more engaging and more in alignment. Perhaps we can find things that are, we better understand what our students responded to in the spring or what they didn't respond to so that we can target that type of online platform or the different ways of approaching groupings, things of that nature as well. So I think there are a number of ways that we can work towards that. And I think the best thing that I can say is that we've learned from this spring. We're continuing to learn. We know that you know your child very, very well. You know your child best, and we know them from a school perspective. So together, our collective minds and our collective learning from last year will allow us to do a better job of serving our needs. And then when it's safe, we will bring the kids back because we do know in person is best for our kids. And so as soon as we're able to do so, we're going to take it slowly. We're going to take it carefully, and we're going to make sure that we bring those children back and under safe conditions, because in person, we know, is what a lot of our kids need. Hopefully that helped a little bit. Superintendent Jordan?
Yes, thank you very much. What's our next question?
Our next question is from Renu Sharma, and she is of McCandless Drive. My child will be attending Kirtner Elementary School, first grade. When should we expect a detailed timetable from the teacher, given the classes will start in less than 10 days? We are both working parents and will need to plan support accordingly.
Thank you. It is difficult as working parents to have ambiguity. And as Ms. Caterin pointed out, our teachers are still on summer break and will not be officially returning until Monday, August 10th. And soon after that, they will be communicating along with the principals to parents about what to expect.
Okay, another comment from Lynn Tran of Sylvia Avenue. I am a senior in high school. What should I bring to registration?
Do we have Mr. Rojas or one of our high school staff members on who can answer that question? I hear that Mr. Rojas is coming in.
There he is.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know you could come from the webinar side over to the panelist side that quick. So the question is, what should students bring to registration? Students are asked to bring to registration the acknowledgement form that they printed at the end of the online registration that their parents did starting tonight. So today is Monday, Monday, August 3rd, and our online parent registration on Aries launched today. So we've had many parents do that. At the end of that process, there should be an acknowledgement form that they print out and sign that they acknowledge receiving all of the information there, as well as an emergency card. So that's all they need to bring. We'll be sending out an email sometime tomorrow with specific registration time slots for students to come in onto campus to submit those papers, take their ID card, receive their ID card, take their ID picture, receive their ID card, and check out Chromebooks if needed as well. So that starts this Friday through next Wednesday. You'll receive an email sometime tomorrow with the specific time slots to come on the campus and instructions.
Thank you.
Same student. If I opt for 100% learning, will I get the opportunity to participate in in-person extracurriculars such as sports and club?
Mr. Rojas?
Sure. When we transition into phase 2 of the hybrid with some in-person learning, any student that is at MHS, whether you are continuing in 100% distance learning or you are involved in in-person learning, you're a student of MHS and you are eligible to participate in our extracurricular and co-curricular programs.
Thank you.
All right, and one last question in the same public comment. To encourage social distancing, do we have to come in for in-person ID pictures? Is it possible to submit a picture instead?
Does that person happen to say which school they're from?
That's MHS.
He knows the student.
Oh, okay.
So it is not possible to submit a picture for ID cards. However, if you and your family feel it is not to your that is not safe for you to come onto campus, even though we have our social distancing protocol and sanitizing of the equipment. The reason why we're doing the ID cards is to actually ease the need for person-to-person interaction when we do textbook pickup the following week. So it just expedites the process and it helps us not require verbal communication. If you have your ID card, you just show it, scan it, pick up your books the following week. So if you and your family choose not to come to registration, we ask that you either use your old ID card, if you have one, it has the same ID number on it, or you bring your mobile device with your Aries profile on it with your ID number, so the people who are checking out books and equipment the following week don't have to verbally interact.
Thank you. Are there any others?
Yeah, I have 4 more that just came in. This one's from Helena Davis of Park Metro Community. I loved my son's 2nd grade teacher sessions and DL style. Miss Veneri did a wonderful job with her planning and weekly schedule she created. It was organized and it had links for the students. My son could do it without my help. He knew he could go to his weekly schedule and find his work. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. I think she was referring to Ms. Sally Venieri.
Okay, next comment from Fa Yu of Ternura Loop. For the Milpitas High School, the Wednesday schedule is just a check-in, or is there student classes, events scheduled for the other time slots?
Mr. Rojas or Mr. Weber or another, or Ms. Drager, Assistant Principal of Milpitas High School.
Who's taking it? Okay, so Wednesday, there will be one class period during which the student will need to check in and attendance will be taken. It will be up to the teacher for how long that is. It is an hour and 105 minutes, but that will be up to the teacher to decide how long that would be. Attendance would be taken at that time. The rest of the rest of the day is asynchronous learning. So it would be assignments that had been assigned Monday, Tuesday to be completed by Thursday, Friday.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. This one is from Yuyen Nguyen of Tramway Drive. And the comment is, what are some supports and or options for children with essential worker parents who have to put children in childcare services? Is there flexibility built into schedules and expectations? The spring distance learning was successful partly because we were mostly mandated to stay at home, but now that local orders have eased up, it will be challenging for parents to be at home. Also, who are supports available for parents having multiple younger children and divide attention?
Thank you for sharing that insight. I'd like to ask either Dr. Lopez or Assistant Superintendent Rodriguez if you could share some of the thoughts about how we can support our parents who are essential workers during the school day for the distance learning.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Thank you. One of the things that we have been discussing is with the YMCA for the Randall and also Rose is establishing learning hubs at the schools where we can have paraprofessionals or substitutes who can maintain social distance for our students while the students are receiving either their synchronous learning or asynchronous learning. And that's one way that we can provide those services.
Thank you.
Okay, next public comment is from Christina Olazaba of Sunny Hills Drive. If a student is ill, has a doctor's appointment, and cannot attend class, what should be done?
Good.
One of the things that we have been discussing about in terms of the attendance protocols is that the teachers and principals need to notify the families about the schedule. When, as much as possible, we want our parents, as always, to please schedule the appointments. The students don't miss their synchronous learning. However, if the case might be that they need to, what we are asking our students is, or our parents is basically, our teachers will take attendance and it will be marked whether absent because they're sick or which is illness. So we will continue to use the same codes that we used before.
Thank you.
Okay, and this one is from Todd Dunn of Matos Drive. I cannot log into Aries. My email was not recognized. This is the same one I have been able to log in with many times up through the end of school in June. I am having to enter as new students.
For that one, we'll have somebody from tech services connect with that parent. Could you make sure that they get the
Actually, Chin Song had answered this very question for me before he left. So
you
I
can
have
answer.
a little bit. Says prior to the school year and for the registration data confirmation process, parents need to use Aries portal at https://go.musd.org.
Scott, can I help elaborate on that? So just to translate that, if you're using the mobile app to try to log into Aries, that's probably where you're getting the error. Chinson has recommended using a full web browser to log into Aries, and that should help you resolve your issue. And if not, Superintendent Jordan, tech services will reach out to you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just check. I think that was, yep. And that was the last public comment at this time.
All right.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, we're moving on
I had unmuted your computer accidentally, so that was the.
Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Okay,
you're good.
good. Item number 2, COVID-19 funding support. Superintendent.
I want to thank all of our subcommittee members before we move on to this item. Again, it's with great appreciation and admiration for the outstanding work that they have done and the many hours that they've spent during, in many cases, during their summer months when normally they would be out doing something different. Now to move on to this item about discussion of a potential parcel tax for the November ballot. I want to remind us all that on March 17th, the district, the board passed a resolution declaring it a state of emergency, and that is still the case. We are in a state of emergency, both in our district as well as nationwide, and as Ms. Cadron stated, globally. The pandemic has definitely changed the way that we live, and that, I believe, is not just temporary, not just until we find a vaccine, but ongoing. Education is not the same. Many people working in industry, it's not the same, and it won't be the same. And again, I cannot emphasize enough the dedication and commitment that our team members have made to this community, to this school district, and to every single one of our learners to do the best that they can. And they need, I think that we can all recognize that commitment that they've made. I think we recognize that that commitment carries them through even in these summer months when traditionally they would be experiencing vacations or time with their family. And so I bring this item to the board for discussion.
I did get 2 more public comments come in on the previous item. If you,
Maybe we could take them when we get to the next action item because it has to do with that.
okay.
All right. Board members, let's discuss the item. This is the parcel tax. We do have the current parcel tax that's going to expire in June 30th, 2023. And can Wendy give us some information? Wendy, can you share with us the rate of the current parcel tax?
Sure. Can you guys hear me well? Okay. So the current rate is $84 per parcel, and the seniors are exempt. And as you mentioned earlier, the current parcel tax will expire on June 30th, 2023. And the total revenue generated is is close to 1.6 million. It's 1,585,000 annual.
1585.
1,500,000.
1,585,000. correct.
So if this goes on the ballot, do we know the rate, or we will know after?
Are you talking about the rate annually that?
Yes.
That's something for discussion by the board tonight. So the discussion is to renew and increase the current parcel tax. And currently it's $84 per year. So the board, we're asking you to discuss number one, renewal, and number two, increasing. In other words, updating it for the state of emergency that we're in, as well as I've stated the need for ongoing improvement in the area of distance learning.
Thank you.
Board members, I think this is a critical discussion, across the board in this world during this pandemic. We've seen really escalating costs to really do the education that we need to do for our learners. However, with the economy being the way it is, with higher unemployment rates, with families struggling to pay their rents and their mortgages, again, I implore us to be thoughtful in reviewing this. I think what was mentioned was this expires at 2023. So we still have an opportunity, whether or not it's this coming November election or future elections, to consider this for renewal or increase. This is the MUSD Educate version 2.0. We still don't have full data as far as the success and the cost of successful education in this distant learning model. You could tell me I'm wrong if you have the data points for that, but I would like to see a little bit more to see how we can support our district with any type of future parcel taxes.
Mr. Forstner, Scott, I believe that there is a attachment with comparisons of other parcel taxes. Could you put that up?
Bring that up right now. Have it right here. Share my screen. Hold on. Here we go. Is that good for everybody to see?
I think we might need to expand it.
And just let me know when I should scroll down a bit.
additional question. Has any polling or initial interest as response to the parcel tax renewal or increase been obtained yet?
No, and I'm glad you asked that question. Last year, or when we went through for a bond proposition, prior to putting anything forward for discussion, uh, and then to put on the ballot, we spent $45,000 on polling as well as getting information out to the voters. And given our state of emergency that we're in right now, if the board decides that they would like to go forward, the cost, estimated cost from the Registrar of Voters to put it on the November ballot is about $65,000. So that's $20,000 more than what we paid prior to have all the background information. And then in addition to that, once the board decided to put the item on the election, the ballot, then we had to also pay the ballot cost. So in a sense, because it's a state of emergency and going directly to the ballot, we are saving the money that we normally would have put towards doing all the polling and getting information out to the public about what the situation is in the current school district.
I feel that people are under the financial stress because of this unmute. Okay. People are under financial stress. It is.
Make your computer muted and
It
then,
is.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know why it echoes like that. Maybe it doesn't want me to talk. People are under stress, under the financial stress because of this pandemic, and proposing to put this on a ballot right now adds more stress. Number one. Number two, we will spend the money and not sure if it will be voted on. Um, and this could wait because we still have the parcel tax that's covering us until June 30th of 2023. So I don't feel there's a rush of doing this at this moment. And I'd like to propose to have this moot and bring this back at a later time. And I would like to hear from my fellow board members.
Yeah, I agree. I understand that we need financial funding, especially during this time. However, the pandemic has caused a lot of damage. People, families are out of work and are in hardship. I feel this is not the right time to have this discussion at all. I mean, the Parcel Act doesn't expire until 2023. So let's just wait until then, until after the pandemic is over to have the discussion.
I just want to kind of add to this. I know I've been a part of a lot of budget meetings, and we plan for budgets in 3 years in advance. And so if we wait to have the discussion, it'd be very difficult because then we'll be playing catch up. Again, I wanted to make sure this is a critical discussion to have now, whether or not we decide to proceed forward or table it for another day. I think the start of this discussion is really important because we've seen the escalated costs. Whether or not it's valuable now to try to push out in a ballot without having that community conversation, it's a little difficult. We're in unprecedented times. The normal course of going to the different school sites, talking to the parents, getting them engaged, we haven't had that opportunity to do that. I would like to see that as we continue to push forward. Looking economically at the numbers, though, the parcel tax of $84 and comparative, and if we put that back on the screen, with other school districts, it's very impressive what we've done in our school district thus far. Again, want to consider more. One other thing we did over the summer, being very good physical stewards of this district, was to push forward with the refunding bond. And Superintendent Jordan, can you remind us how much we saved our taxpayers with that?
Yep, go ahead. Yeah, well, I'm very excited to share that. Yeah, we actually doubled our savings to our taxpayers. The total savings, net order cost is about 6.5 million. So back in April, our estimate was around 3 million. So this was a much higher, better than we expected.
That's amazing news, fabulous news. And again, I want to reiterate, this discussion isn't about anything more than us as a board being physical stewards of this district, ensuring the financial health of this district so that we can continue the education forward.
I'd like to speak. Again, thank you for that, Wendy. I still remember that discussion we had at that previous meeting about the bond refinancing. I argued back then that it was better to try to get 2 marshmallows instead of 1 marshmallow, to use the analogy from the Stanford experiment. And so the good news is we got those 2 marshmallows, and they couldn't have come at a better time. And yes, as other board members already mentioned, we're all in hard times, and I'm really seeing the pain out there in the community. You know, you look at unemployment rates, not only in our county but the state and the country. People are hurting. You know, the number of people trying to get food assistance is high, and it's going up. And to make matters worse, you look at what's going on at the federal level. They're talking about how the unemployment assistance benefits are going to run out soon. Don't know if they're going to be renewed. And in some places, the moratorium on evictions is also gradually expiring. So some economists are predicting that we might be seeing a lot more evictions come in the near future due to that. So people are in a lot of economic pain right now. So, you know, I get that our education system needs money, but, you know, people are in pain as well. So, you know, as much as we can try to, you know, reach within and get more creative with our fiscal stewardship and find innovative solutions, the more we can protect the community from that pain if possible. But again, you know, I am very sympathetic to the fact that our education system needs money. All these new innovations, cleaning protocols and stuff is going to require professional development. But we got to find a way to step up to the plate. And as was already mentioned, you know, this is going to last until 2023. But yeah.
Thank you, Michael. David, can you hear me? You can. Okay. Mr. Vice President Lewis.
Could I see the table again, please? I truly struggle with the entire situation that we're dealing with for a couple of reasons. The first reason is I don't want another tax for anyone, and at the same time, I don't want to see my property value change. What Milpitas has been able to do with this, with an $84 parcel tax, has benefited this community significantly over quite a few years. And each time that I've come to the school district site, or we've looked at the achievement gap, or other things that we've not been able to do, and the conversations that Norma has shared, it has come down to resources that have been desperately needed for a long time. And so not wanting to have another tax is paramount. I understand that. But again, not wanting to see my property value go down, knowing that our education system has now is transitioning from what we knew to something that we still don't know, and hearing our teachers talk about professional development, Ona advocating for, hey, we're still trying to figure this out. What's been invested into what the district staff and teachers have invested into the community, and allowing the residents to decide, is what they've done worth the investment for them to continue to get better in it? Yes, I understand the cost of putting this measure on the ballot, but is ultimately the opportunity for the voters to decide when that time comes. If they were voting today, we have a pretty good idea that it may not pass, possibly. But parent sessions, and I know that parents don't represent all the voters, we've heard a lot of appreciation, admiration, and excitement about what we're doing and what we've been doing. I've heard the fact that we are under-resourced in terms of what we've been able to pull off. The risks that we are going to run without being thoughtful about the future of what we're going to be able to do are significant. Superintendent Jordan, could you share a little bit about, again, the investment that the school district staff has made over the summer and are preparing to make for this school year?
Yes, in addition to the subcommittee members, we had about 675 participants in our colleague to colleague professional development this summer. And again, that's during teachers are on their own time during the summer months. So that's teachers investing in each other and investing in themselves and trying to figure out how to do distance learning in the best way possible. Additionally, we've had teachers who have attended the Google University, who have attended Stanford distance learning, all on their own time, and in several cases on their own dime. So the staff, as you heard tonight, the staff has committed to making themselves the best that they can be, because the staff is committed to making sure that our learners, every one of them, is learning. No teacher wants to come to a job. Let me back up. No teacher who considers this their vocation or their purpose wants to have a classroom where they feel defeated because they see their kids on the screen looking bewildered, because they see parents who are struggling with trying to navigate these different tools. They don't want to see that. It hurts. And that's why they've made this commitment to improving themselves and to learning everything that they can. That's why you see in the schedules that were proposed that every Wednesday there's opportunity for collaboration and opportunity for professional development. There are some items that the professional development subcommittee suggested that cost money. And part of our cost management that we've talked about is reducing or eliminating contracting fees or consultant fees as much as possible, and instead turning to our own expertise, of which we have a great amount. But distance learning is very new for many of them. And we know from our surveys this past spring that only about 25% of them really felt like that they knew how to do distance learning because they had already been doing it for a few years. While the bulk of them were trying to catch up and trying to figure it out. And even still, by the end of the spring, we had 5% who still felt inadequate and completely unprepared to make it work.
How many students do we have in the district with IEPs?
We have Assistant Superintendent Rodriguez.
We have about 900, a little bit less shy of 1,000 students.
How many English language learners do we have?
We have 34% of our student population is classified as English language learner.
The reason why I ask those questions because we're not able to seek children face to face, and it's unclear for quite some time. We know that those two populations, our special ed and our English language learners, approximately 4,000, which is 40% of the district, are going to have some challenges that the only way that we're going to be able to address those challenges is to have additional resources.
Those are the students that we would have to be prepared to create a plan for acceleration, an acceleration plan for their learning. That is very much different and that we have to be very strategic. And as an English language learner, it is critical for them to negotiate meaning and via electronically or virtually, it's very, very challenging, the same as our special ed students. And so we have to be strategic in terms of finding ways to meet their needs.
So when you say strategic, you're saying we have to do more with less.
Yes.
Okay. I do hear everybody. I do hear that the timing in terms of the right now moment, moving forward with this, does not appear wise. I do hear what I do see, and we all see what the staff has done over the past 6 months. So I appreciate you men for saying that we should have a thoughtful conversation about what this means, whether or not we allow it to go to the ballot, because ultimately the voters are going to decide, or we don't go to ballot because of some of the things that have been rightly identified. I fully agree and understand that 2023 is when the parcel tax potentially expires. We are in a state of emergency. And this was a topic that was discussed earlier, but it never got a chance to carry through because COVID-19 hit and we went immediately into action. So I do understand, also want to acknowledge Kelly's point about saying that she feels that this should not be a topic at this time at all. I appreciate that. And thank you, Michael, for identifying the marshmallow, and Wendy for identifying that we continue to be fiscally responsible in our efforts as we obtain funds and learn how to use them in the best way possible. are there suggestions if what would be the steps, superintendent, or how could we gather more information, or is there a possibility of us gathering more information, or is there any interest in more information before the decision needs to be made? I guess I would ask that to the board members. Is there interest in more information before the decision needs to be made, or has everyone pretty much made up their mind already?
So when I said that it should not be this time to discuss about this item, and I gave 3 reasons. 1, it cost us money to put it on the ballot. 2, not the right time. 3, voters may not vote for it and we are going to waste our money. Yes, I'm open to discuss, and I would like to have some data points, something to consider that I'm wrong, that it should go on the ballot this November.
I want to step in. I wouldn't say that you're wrong. There is no wrong in this.
Okay.
There is no wrong. I believe all of your valids. I believe all of your reasons are valid. I believe that there's the county is talking about doing something. The city is talking about doing something, and there is this thing called potential tax fatigue. That there's a number of items on a ballot that alleviate. Well, voters will say, "I'm not voting for this at all."
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's my point. They're going to look at all the propositions that's on the ballot and said, here's a quarter, here's a quarter of a cent or an eighth of a cent, and then we add it all up. Things may change. I understand that we are in the pandemic and we're looking out to maybe a year and a half or so. I don't believe that we cannot get grants or some sort of help from the federal or the state.
Those are not forthcoming, but you need to have the data on that. I understand.
Yes.
So just to clarify, are we talking about this, was it 6 days that we have to decide before we get into this November ballot, or are we talking about the 2023 expiration date as far as decision?
Yeah. If we want to make a decision for this November, we have to have it in the Register of Voters' hands by 5 o'clock on August 7th.
I appreciate
And
that.
we also have to get the signature of Dr. Mary Ann DeWan, the county superintendent.
That seems like a very short time to try to wrangle enough data points to make a very informed decision.
Yeah.
And so I would suggest that we table this for a future election, but continue to gather the data points, continue to have the conversations, because we definitely want to take a look at it. I didn't ask this, but what would be the fallout if we did not renew the parcel tax? Exactly right. We lose the funding, and as much as folks are currently experiencing unemployment out there, that will hurt us as a district as well, as far as our staff, our teachers, and ultimately our students. Because right now, the order is reduce class sizes. And it's very difficult when we don't have the funding to hire more teachers or even keep our teachers. So again, very thoughtful about this. I understand the discussion that this is being brought up. I appreciate that. I do feel my other board members as far as this seems a little short time as far as discussion for this coming November ballot.
Let me just qualify. If the measure is defeated, we still continue with the current parcel tax until 2023.
Thank you.
Where are we in comparison on the parcel tax? Where are we in comparison to our the districts that we are so commonly compared against, and how and what the possibilities are.
The comparison as far as
The districts that are surrounding us.
so as far as their parcel tax or the amount.
So we're by Berryessa, Alum Rock, Santa Clara. We have been compared to Palo Alto, Fremont, and Cupertino.
Okay, so Alum Rock, their parcel tax is $204. Cupertino's was $250. Las Gatos Union Elementary, $290. You said Fremont, $98 for Fremont Union High School District.
Fremont Unified.
Fremont Unified, theirs was $296. Palo Alto, $820. Santa Clara Unified doesn't have one.
Why doesn't Santa Clara? Separate note. I'll figure that out at another time. So in comparison to the school districts that we're surrounded by, we are at least twice as low, or in some instances, 5 times as low. That's not the right language. 3 times. Cupertino, Alum Rock, almost 3 times. Palo Alto, 9 times. Thank you.
The rate that superintendent just shared, it was there. It is not happening in this November. Yes, we take that, we compare so that we know that we are only a third of what they are charging or what they are getting. But with this pandemic, if you put it on the ballot, I don't think people will vote for it. And we are going to throw away another $65,000 on top of.
Okay.
So it's just the wrong time to put this on.
So may I ask you, Board President, is it the right time to have the discussion?
Yes, it is the right time to have the discussion so that we can find ways to see how we can help us all in this district. And yes, this is a discussion item.
So right now, the parcel tax brings in 1.5.
85.
1.585. And Michael, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hypothetical. How do we, as a school district without a tax raise, 1.5?
That's a pretty long discussion. We'd probably have to look at the budget and look at creative ways to maybe find new synergy and maybe look for new grants. Maybe push for help from the state or the county or even the federal government.
Wendy, could you share with the board again what you say about grants so that they can maybe be clear on that?
Well, the grants is normally considered as a one-time money because unless they're committed ongoing revenue. I have to say parcel tax is ongoing if normally it has an expiration date. So our current parcel tax still, if we don't put it in this November's ballot, I mean, we're still collecting 1.5 million. It's just that we really have to make a decision when the June 30th, 2023 approaching what we're going to do. But you don't want to wait until that time to decide, because what if it did not pass in that last election, then we will lose the funding. So normally we will consider that ahead of time. So that way, in case, it did not pass first time, and then we can still come out the second time and to work on it, which it actually happened before. Long time ago, when we first time trying to do a parcel tax, I think we failed. And then we came out again and we won the election.
So with all that said, we can bring this back sometime in the near future to discuss and let it go on the next election year, which could be 2 years from now, right? With the city council's election.
I think we would want to go, if we don't do it this November, we would want to do it the next year, because as Wendy said, if it fails, then it gives us one more year.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a year to plan, a year to discuss, a year to find ways so that we will get it on and that voters will support us. Okay.
And for clarification, you can go either on the primary or general election.
Yes, it can also go in March or mail in. It can go in mail in June too, as I have to double check that, but I think it go mail in on June.
I believe that's a higher cost though. To
Yes,
do a
it's a
mail-in,
higher
because
cost.
it'll be considered as another special election.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right.
So March is special election, higher cost. June, less. November, less.
I don't know that June is less, because typically in June, there's only 1 or 2 items on a ballot. So then you bear a greater portion of the cost, and if not the whole cost. November is the cheapest, because that's when you have other measures and electoral seats up.
So when would be the time to bring this back? Because I heard a couple of things. I heard that the polling, I heard Kelly, this isn't the right time to even discuss it. And Han make the 3 points. And with the underlying belief that we will not have voter support. So when would be the right time to make sure that this becomes top of mind and it stays near top of mind?
We can start bringing this back anytime now to discuss and to, like I said, to come to an agreement of all of us when to bring it, when to put it on the ballot.
So I think the reason why we have 5 board members is that we don't all, and we've done a pretty good job of this, we've all for the most part agreed on things. And there have been various reasons for us all agreeing on things. But I also think that it is healthy, and it's always healthy for us to be able to adamantly, from our particular perspectives, to be able to talk through things and then also make those decisions.
Yes.
So I was asking more so to the superintendent about when, because you brought it to our attention.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
You brought it to our attention. You reminded us that we had some preliminary discussions prior to COVID. We dove into COVID. We didn't get a chance to continue those discussions. And now you did try to bring it to us before the deadline versus mentioning it after the fact.
Yes, and my thinking of bringing it now is, if we paid $45,000 before just to do all of the polling and all of the campaigning, and then on top of that paid what it costs to put it on the ballot, to me it seemed like a cost benefit analysis to skip all that polling stuff, go directly to putting it on the ballot and doing a really darn good job of communicating with all of our stakeholders. Because we would only be out And if you did the comparison, $20,000 if it was defeated versus paying $45,000, learning that we're not going to get the support and then not putting it on. That was my rationale. So that being said, your question was when would be the right time to bring it back?
Can I propose to
Mhm.
have it, have you bring this back to us for discussion any time in October or November?
It would most likely have to, just to complement what you're saying, we would probably most likely bring it back after the election. Help me understand the rationale of bringing it back before the general election in November.
I said October or November, so it could be November 4th, which is after the election.
Okay.
I would suggest we bring it back in January because, as we talked about data points, again, escalating cost of going to this distant learn, educate everywhere, that will give us roughly 4 months from August through December to figure out, are we having escalated costs? As we're trying to work towards balancing the budget for next year for consideration, that will become a topic of discussion to whether or not we want to push for a parcel tax to help supplement our future budgets. And the reason I say this, and from pure basic education, there's 3 tiers of taxes that fund the district. We have the federal, the state, and the parcel tax. And the parcel tax is what we can control in this district as far as coming directly to this district. As we saw from the governor's report for the state budget, he talked about a lot of cuts, and that is disparaging to have a wait and see approach to see if he will continue to fund different cost of living adjustments, different programs as far as special ed, early childhood education, etc. As we know, the federal government right now, it's been trying to pull tooth and nail to get any type of funding outside of the care package.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe January is a really good time to bring this back for consideration as we go into 2021.
Okay.
I agree with that. January would be a good time.
Okay.
That's Mr. Saad.
Huh?
That's Mr. Saad.
Oh, I forgot. I see. Michael,
Yes.
what do you think about bringing this back in January to discuss?
I'm open to that. As Chris was saying, I mean, frankly, I'm okay with talking about it before or after the election. That said, I think the big question in the air is what's going to be the outcome of the presidential election. And, depending on that could really change the landscape that we're facing for the next 4 years. So to me, I mean, that I'm okay with January.
All right. Thank you.
Or later. I think you
Thank
generally
you.
made my points for me already.
All right. Since
I
this
look
is
forward to the point when we realize that regardless of what happens on the federal level, what we have a chance to control or to manage or to work with the community on is the 14 by 14 square miles that we have. I look forward to that date.
okay, so let's bring this
Thank you,
back in
Chris.
January, and now let's move on to the next item.
I do have some public comment on
Oh yes, I
this item.
forgot. Yes, Scott.
We have Joseph Weinstein of Hamilton Avenue. He was asking Wendy, is the 6.5 million real dollars or just money that we did not have to spend? Can we use the 6.5 million in place of the parcel tax?
He's talking about the
The,
savings, the taxpayers.
the 6.5 million savings I referenced earlier is actually the savings to the taxpayers. It has nothing to do with the district budget. And so that money directly goes to the resident. And so in the other words, that 6.5 million saving has no impact to our own district budget.
Okay, the next comment is from Rob Jung of Park Victoria. And his comment is, please note that the parcel tax affects primarily homeowners, not renters, although one could argue it may have an indirect effect. And the next comment is from David Graham of Chupon Avenue. Come on now, you know as well as I do that 34% number for ELL students is exaggerated. For instance, all 3 of my sons are classified as ELL. None of them are really ELL. They are all native English speakers every bit as much as I am. They are classified as ELL only because their mother is a native Vietnamese speaker and has spoken Vietnamese since they were born. I know many families with the same situation. And then another comment from Rob Jung of North Park, Victoria. As I see it, here are the choices. 1, keep the tax as is and extending it for a period of time. 2, increase the tax to help fund the additional effort that is needed to overcome this pandemic. 3, delay the decision and potentially risk that we won't be ready for the unknown challenges that distance learning will present from a funding perspective. The superintendent is trying to save dollars to place it on the ballot now versus later. And that was the final comment. Let me just check again. Yep, and that's all the public comment on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to action item. Superintendent Jordan.
Okay. I believe, Scott, you said there were 2 other public comments that related to the efforts for phasing in 2021.
That's correct. Let me find those. Let's see. We have a comment from Rob Jung of North Park, Victoria. Is there a way to explore a partnership with local child care centers to create learning hubs for the essential workers?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I've been speaking with our city on doing a partnership. We've also, with the board members, have reached out to faith-based organizations and are continuing to do that. And then, as Assistant Superintendent Rodriguez mentioned when she said ACES, which is after school education and safety, that would be working with our YMCA partners and also San Jose City College to create learning hubs for older students as well.
Okay, and one last one is from Esmeralda Madrigal of Milpitas. When will the YMCA be available to arrange childcare? Will it be available in the afternoon for working parents?
That is a good question. Please make sure we have our contact information and we'll follow up.
And we have our email, yes.
Okay. This is an action item. In applying for the waiver to have small targeted groups of elementary students for in-person support, it is not an item that the board necessarily has to approve. However, I would like to be able to add to the waiver packet that I have board support in applying for the waiver. And again, so everybody knows, the waiver does require that we have communicated with parents, which I think we've done a pretty darn good job this July. And also that we've consulted with the association, and I've spoken with President of MTA, Diana Orlando, and she's supportive. So what I would ask of the board is that you approve a letter that President Lien can write in support of the waiver that I could include with the waiver application.
So this is an action item, and
Motion to approve the waiver on behalf with the letter of recommendation from Board President Han Lien.
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Michael. Any opposed? Seeing none, the superintendent, we will get that on quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the end of our agenda. Are there any other issues that we need to talk about on the right?
If I just need to caution you, since there isn't anything else agendized, if we have issues that people want to talk about, it would be suggestions for our next board meeting.
Okay, so anything else here?
No, I just like to thank everyone for, I think one of the more thoughtful or deeper discussions about our role as board members when it comes to our responsibility to the community and to the staff and everyone that's made Milpitas Unified School District of what it is. I'm thankful that everyone was able to express their true feelings and their thoughts and their perspectives. I've always advocated for that, for us to put it out there so that we can hear it, so we can learn from it. And what we learned, or what I learned, is that timing and us working together, whether it's in this forum or just continuing to do the work outside of here, is what's going to make this district stronger. And we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to invest the time and learn about what the possibilities are of the things that are going out there. And I thank you, Superintendent Jordan, for allowing us to have the discussion by putting it out there, because you didn't have to, but you did. But we did talk about it, and you did. So I appreciate all of you. And I thank you, Michael, for your input as well.
Thank you, Vice
Chris.
President. I also wanted to thank all the members on the different subcommittees, the total of 14 subcommittees, and the over 11,000 hours that you guys worked really hard to serve our students and our community. I've been on meetings which starts like 8 a.m. and you guys are there with full energy. You know, I'm so grateful that we are in the same family, same district, serving the students. And I understand that I thank you guys each and every meeting, but that's just not enough. So again, thank you. Special thanks to you, Superintendent Jordan, for your leadership.
Takes all of us, so thank you for being my partner.
We are great together. All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you for all your hard work.